Chapter 44-44. Xuanhuan was just as excited. It had been over 2,000 years since they last met, and that was when Lu Yin had created the Nirvana tree. Now Xuanhuan had cultivated to the level of sequence laws and could break through to the primordial realm at any time. As for Master Lu, he was already invincible in human civilization. Everyone called them geniuses, but compared to Lu Yin they were too mediocre. They were so mediocre that they had no intention of competing with him. After Xuanhuan and the others left, Lu Yin looked ahead. Lan Ming should be living here. He still has some tricks up his sleeve. With that, he took a step forward. He did not teleport, instead walking forward step by step. An invisible force destroyed the world, and the further in he went, the stronger it became. It had gone from easily killing progenitors to now being able to kill powerhouses who had crossed bitter adversity. However, in Lu Yin's eyes, it was no different from nothing. Even if Lan Ming was here, it would be impossible for him to escape. Lu Yin raised a hand and tapped with his finger. The void cracked open, revealing a parallel spacetime. As the parallel spacetime opened, the void of the entire blue sky realm constantly changed. Parallel spacetime cracked open one after another, revealing countless withered branch creatures. This shocked the three universes. They had not expected so many to be hidden. Lu Yin looked up and narrowed his eyes. It had to be said that the blue sky realm was capable of producing eternal realms one after another, especially one as strong as Lan Ming. Although they had lost their eternal realm powerhouses, the countless years of accumulation combined with the special characteristics of these creatures allowed them to surpass the cultivators of the three universes in terms of overall strength. It was time for the E-Manor to move out. Lu Yin did not take action himself. The divine seal catalog flickered above his head, and consciousness bodies shot out, cooperating with the cultivators of the three universes to kill the withered branch creatures. He could easily kill these creatures, but it was better to leave them for the cultivators to kill. The future civilization wars would not be his alone. Human civilization needed powerhouses to constantly rise up. Lu Yin himself entered the parallel spacetime in front of him. There were no longer any withered branch creatures in this parallel spacetime. This was where Lan Ming cultivated, and there were many things he had collected. Lu Yin casually glanced around, and his gaze suddenly stopped on two items. One was a black armor plate, and there were 4 of them. Lan Ming had actually hidden 4 of them, and he had not placed them in his cosmic ring but in the blue sky realm. He had hidden them well. Back when Lan Ming ambushed old ancestor Shan, at the final moment, the 100 seals were scattered. It was not strange for Lan Ming to obtain 4 black armor plates. Another thing that attracted Lu Yin's attention was a sword. It was a red sword that came from the path of ruthlessness. The moment he saw the sword, he felt his heart palpitate. It was as if he could see the sharpness of the sword, a sharpness that even he would find difficult to withstand. Could it be? He teleported and appeared in front of the red sword. He slowly raised his hand and touched it. Suddenly he loosened his grip. This was the sword will of the emotionless Tao. It was indeed the sword of the emotionless Tao, and it should belong to xuanhuan. If it was not xuanhuan, whose sword will could make his heart palpitate in the heartless path. The red hero was one of them, and the drunkard was at most half of them. Even their sword wills could not reach this level of palpitation. Only xuanhuan, the master of the second wall and the founder of the ruthless doctrine, could do it. Xuanhuan's sword was actually with Lan Ming? He recalled what Lan Ming had once said. Its father had participated in the war that destroyed the 9th wall, and its opponent should have been the second wall. Its father had personally seen xuanhuan enter a tributary of the River of Time, which belonged to the current Tianyuan universe. In that case, it was not impossible for its father to obtain xuanhuan's sword. At that time xuanhuan had been betrayed by the Red Hero, and before that, it had fought a decisive battle with Emperor Qiu, the master of Air Mao. It had been severely injured, so it was not surprising that the red sword had been lost or stolen. Fortunately, he had found the blue sky realm. Otherwise, who knew when the red sword and the 4 pieces of armor would appear? Lu Yin took a deep breath, picked up the red sword and the pieces of armor, and left. Aside from these 2 items, the rest of the items here were worthless. Lan Ming had taken away the valuable items, but the valuable items and the worthless items had been left behind. Now Lu Yin had benefited. To the human civilization, the blue sky realm was actually very valuable, which was why this war had begun. The fact that the blue sky realm could produce so many eternal realms meant that it was rich in cultivation resources. The body parts of the withered tree monsters were also very valuable, enough for the human civilization to research and create new weapons. Consciousness bodies would not die, and when countless consciousness bodies swept through the blue sky realm, it meant that the war here was nearing its end. No matter how many withered tree monsters were hidden in the parallel spacetime of the blue sky realm, they were powerless to reverse the situation. Half a month later, the war in the blue sky realm ended. Lu Yin went to the red coat universe under the stars to see Jiuwen. Senior, if you obtain the weapon of the base master xuanhuan, are you confident that you can fight the red hero? This was the first sentence that Lu Yin asked Jiuwen when he saw him. His voice was very soft, but it had a huge impact on Jiuwen. He looked at Lu Yin in a daze. Suppressing artifact turbid treasure? Lu Yin shook his head. Jiuwen's eyes flashed. Sword. Lu Yin and Jiuwen looked at each other, waiting for Jiuwen's answer. Jiuwen was very excited, as he had not expected Lu Yin to really obtain the sword of the base master xuanhuan. As someone who cultivated the path of ruthlessness, he was very clear about the profound meaning of the sword. When the sword intent merged with the path of ruthlessness, it would bring a huge impact to the cultivators of the path of ruthlessness. It could also point out a path for the cultivators of the path of ruthlessness. Give it to Xuanhuan, Jiuwen asked. Lu Yin was surprised. Senior, don't you need it? Jiuwen said bitterly, even if I get it, it would be useless. My path has long been fixed, and I will never be able to reach the heights of the base master xuanhuan. However, Xuanhuan is different. In the past he only had good talent, but now that he has been baptized by a master, his heart is firm. He has a unique advantage in the cultivation of the path of ruthlessness. Lu Yin nodded. Of course he was clear about this. On the day of the disciple ceremony, Xuanhuan had confirmed the path of ruthlessness. This was also a huge impact on Lu Yin. That was why he said that Xuanhuan should be the peak of humanity and had high expectations for him. It could be said that from the moment the red hero betrayed them, the path of ruthlessness was divided into two eras. One was the era of the red frost, and the other was the era of the red hero. As for Xuanhuan, Lu Yin felt that he was the person who could start the third era. The battle with the immortal feather had confirmed this point. Xuanhuan carried Jiuwen's red umbrella and fought with the immortal feather's attacks that were compatible with the laws of the universe. Although he was heavily injured time and time again, he did not fall. He had already completely adapted to Jiuwen's red umbrella. That was Jiuwen's weapon. Xuanhuan's talent in the cultivation of the path of ruthlessness was too high. Lu Yin took a deep look at Jiuwen and said, I hope he doesn't let you down. Jiuwen smiled and said, he won't. To be able to meet you, Mr. Lu, is his fortune. It is also the fortune of the path of ruthlessness. I, Jiuwen, am here. Thank you, Mr. As he said that, he slowly bowed to Lu Yin. Lu Yin teleported away and did not accept this bow. Jiuwen had also sacrificed a lot to deal with the red hero. Although it was unfair to the current red-clothed cultivators under the stars and had taught them the wrong path of cultivation, he had also planned to sacrifice himself. It could only be said that everyone's choice was different. He was different from Master Grass and Sunken Jian Yongxing. He had the determination to stake everything on a single throw. Lu Yin left the red-clothed universe under the stars and returned to the Tianyuan universe to look for Xuanhuan. Master. Xuanhuan bowed. During the battle in the Immortal Feather Civilization, he had been severely injured. After that, he had entered the Mirage Domain to recuperate for a long time before he recovered. Lu Yin looked at Xuanhuan and asked, when can you break through to the Eternal Realm? Xuanhuan thought for a while and said, I don't know. You should be very familiar with the path of ruthlessness. The more I know, the more I don't know. The path of ruthlessness is very broad. Emotions are the most complicated thoughts of humans. Ruthlessness is just as complicated as emotions. Lu Yin stretched out his hand and the red sword appeared. Xuanhuan looked at the red sword. The moment the sword appeared, he felt connected to it. It was the profound meaning of the path of ruthlessness. It was the path of ruthlessness. He looked at Lu Yin in surprise and asked, Master, this is? Don't ask. Feel it yourself. Take it or not, Lu Yin said calmly. Xuanhuan's gaze fell on the sword again and looked at it deeply. After a while, he bent down and raised his arms. Disciple, take the sword. Lu Yin placed the sword in Xuanhuan's hand. Xuanhuan's body shook, and his gaze turned cloudy in an instant. It was as if countless emotions were intertwined and he was struggling. His body trembled, and he maintained his posture of taking the sword. Lu Yin frowned. xuanhuan's sword had a greater impact on the cultivators of the path of ruthlessness than he had imagined. Perhaps it was because Xuanhuan was too talented in the path of ruthlessness? He hoped that this sword would bring him a path and not an abyss. Sitting down slowly, Long Shi poured tea for Lu Yin. Lu Yin drank a mouthful and waited calmly. Long she looked at Xuanhuan and left. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. A full 10 days passed before Xuanhuan woke up. He lowered his arms and looked at Luyin. Master, who owns this sword? Luyin asked, how do you feel? It's vast. It's as if everything in the path of ruthlessness has been accommodated. But it also feels like a lighthouse has lit up in the ocean of the path of ruthlessness. Master, what is this sword? This was the 3rd time he had asked. Luyin did not answer and only said, cultivate well. There's no need to rush to break through to the eternal realm. Success will come naturally. Human civilization does not lack an ordinary eternal realm cultivator. What they lack is a guide for the path of ruthlessness. He looked at Xuanhuan. The glory of the 2nd stronghold must be reborn in your hands. Xuanhuan's eyes narrowed as he vaguely guessed something. He bowed deeply to Luyin. Disciple understands. Soon Xuanhuan went into seclusion. Luyin brought the 4 pieces of armor to 7 treasures heavenly toad 25 and asked it to translate. 25 no longer cared about the consciousness universe. The consciousness universe had been rebooted, and it was now living in the Tianyuan universe. Seeing Luyin find 4 pieces of armor at once, it was quite surprised. Wait, there's no hurry. Let me take a look first. After all, I'm very calm. 25 took the 4 pieces of armor and looked at them seriously. Luyin waited quietly. At the same time he looked at 25. 25 looked at the 4 pieces of armor one after another, and the expression on his face kept changing. Sometimes it was sad, sometimes it was surprised, sometimes it was in disbelief, and sometimes it was hesitant. The variety of expressions made Luyin look forward to the content of the 4 pieces of armor. After a while 25 said, I won't repeat it. I'll translate it for you. Although some of the content doesn't need to be translated, I'm worried that there might be some code words. So I'll translate it for you. I'm very calm, so boss kept me. Luyin nodded, thank you. Chapter 44-45. 25 raised a piece of armor. I knew that we would have to part one day. Eternal life? There is no such thing as eternal life. Theoretically, eternal life is eternal, but no creature can truly live forever. From the moment we defeated the Dark Apocalypse civilization, the days of this old man's departure from the entire race have entered the countdown. I can't bear to part with you, children. The 7-colored lake, the emerald green lotus leaves, and the innocent smiles on your faces made me reluctant to part with you. Looking at you all, I know that I'm still alive. Unfortunately, this day will eventually come. Alright, there's also that hateful and naughty little 6. I really hope I can see you one last time before I die. 25 blinked. That's all. Luyin took the armor piece. Does it record your reluctance to part with the 7 treasures Heavenly Toad tribe? 25 nodded silently. We can't bear to part with you either. Luyin patted its head and did not say anything else. Soon 25 took out a 2nd piece of armor. There's a coordinate recorded here. Coordinate? 25 translated it for Luyin. Luyin traced it in the sky and remembered the half-invincible coordinate that Patriarch Shan had left on another piece of armor. The two matched and there was no mistake. It was these coordinates, but it could only be considered half of half. The previous coordinate was a line, but the current coordinate was only one end of a line, and there was no other end. The point where the 2 lines intersected was where the invincible coordinate was, but just based on this half of the coordinate, it was impossible to draw the 2nd line. One more coordinate was missing. Splitting a coordinate into 3 pieces was enough to show the importance old ancestor Shan placed on it. He was not guarding against himself. Back when he was trapped in the Mahakala ceiling mirror, he was also guarding against the Dark Enlightenment civilization. He was guarding against the unknown, which was why he had split the pieces. Yes, Patriarch Shan had died because he was being watched by some creature. Perhaps it had sensed it at the beginning of the war with the Dark Apocalypse civilization. Luyin did not know the details, so he could only guess. However, it was clear that these 100 pieces of armor would not be collected in a short period of time. 25 took out the 3rd piece. There's only one sentence on it. It was a little conflicted. Is Patriarch Shan crazy? Luyin was curious. What's written on it? 25 coughed. I'll translate it for you, but don't think that I said it. I'm too calm to say such things. Luyin looked at it. It stared at the piece of armor. There are indeed invincible techniques in this world. We were all wrong. That person who had been laughed at for his entire life unleashed the most powerful and invincible punch. With one punch, he destroyed an entire fishing civilization. Luyin's eyes widened, thinking that he had misheard. What did you say? 25 stomped his feet. I didn't say that. It was the ancestor. I'm not that shallow. Say it again. Lu Yin's expression was solemn. 25 translated again and hurriedly said, I'll reiterate again. I didn't say that. I'm so calm and steady. I wouldn't say something like that. Lu Yin stared at the plate in shock. Was this for real? Destroying a fishing civilization with one punch? Are you kidding me? That was a fishing civilization. Even Grand Ancestor Shan would not be able to defeat the Dark Enlightenment civilization that easily. Even so, there were still survivors from the Dark Enlightenment civilization who managed to escape. Oh, so terrifying that he could destroy a fishing civilization with one punch? Wait, punch? He suddenly thought of the Starry Fist. Sunken Eternity's masters had said that the Starry Fist was invincible, and his masters had come from the 9th base. Could it be true? Even Air Mao had said that the Taya Starry Fist was invincible. It couldn't be. He had also opened the Astral Fist manual. The Starry Fist was indeed powerful. However, it was more suitable for inheriting a civilization. It was a fist technique of a civilization, not an individual. A fist technique of a civilization? An invincible technique. Perhaps this was the path to invincibility? An individual's strength was ultimately limited. Only with the blessing of a civilization could one be invincible. Was this the case? Lu Yin stared at the piece of armor. That short sentence had changed his perception. Grand Ancestor Shan would not speak nonsense. There were indeed invincible techniques in this world. Someone who had been laughed at for their entire life? There were too many legends about the 9 bases era. He wanted to go against the flow of time and return to the peak of the 9 bases era. He wanted to witness the birth of heroes and see the resplendent starry sky. There's more here. Do you want to translate? Lu Yin put away the plate. Continue. 25 coughed again. I'll write it down this time. Lu Yin watched. Every living being has the right to choose. Every civilization can have a creature that can defy the ancients. But can defying the ancients really change the fate of a civilization? Lu Yin took a step forward and stared at the stars. Defying the ancients? He had finally mentioned defying the ancients. He had always remembered defying the ancients. When he had broken through, Brave Surge had caught up with some people, but the last person had thrown him back because it was too early. The answer he had obtained from Azure Lotus was that defying the ancients really did exist, but they could not return. The turbid treasure was most likely a gift from defying the ancients to the later generations. Lu Yin had thought that the turbid treasure might be able to contact defying the ancients. Once defying the ancients returned, human civilization would be completely different. However, other civilizations might have defying the ancients as well, but there were no records of them returning. Azure Lotus knew very little. He was confident that defying the ancients was an existence that matched the laws of 2 universes, but once defying the ancients left, there was no guarantee of returning. The truth of defying the ancients was still unclear. Defying the ancients, defying the ancients. Defying the ancients means all suffering, and this suffering will be paid for by civilization. This old man's karmic bindings are complete, and there's nothing I can do about defying the ancients, so I won't join in the fun. Whether this path is right or wrong, this old man hopes that the future generations will be accounted for. 25 stopped. Lu Yin frowned. That's it? 25 shook his head. That's it. Lu Yin looked at the words written in the stars. That's it? What was written here? Expectations? Conflicted choices? What exactly was defying the ancients? He had thought that he could learn the truth of defying the ancients through Patriarch Shan, but now it seemed that even Patriarch Shan did not know. He naturally had the ability to defy the ancients, but his karmic bindings were complete due to encountering the Dark Apocalypse, so he did not set foot on that path. Otherwise, with Patriarch Shan's strength, he might have been able to return. An existence that matched the laws of 3 universes was a rare powerhouse throughout history. No matter how difficult the defying the ancients was, it might not be able to keep such a powerhouse. What a pity. But what did the last sentence mean by accounting for the future generations? It seemed to be referring to something. After all 4 plates were translated, 25 left. He found human civilization very interesting. No wonder the Star Toad was willing to stay. Lu Yin looked at the plates and put them away. With 20 plates, the external pupil avatar's defense had increased again. He found a place to lie down in the hanging coffin and disappeared. Who's there? Come out and talk, Lu Yin called out. The Divine Master heard him. He had always been there, but he knew that Lu Yin was not looking for him. I'm here. This was the Black Unknown. Ever since it discovered that Lu Yin's drawing of the star chart was especially fast, the Black Unknown's attitude towards him had changed. Before, it would completely ignore him and not say a word, but now it could chat as long as Lu Yin was willing. Black, have you heard of an invincible fist technique? An invincible fist technique? The starry fist, the old man said. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. Old man, you know about it? Of course. Since ancient times, the only thing that could truly be called invincible was that punch. Didn't Second Hair say that before he died? The old man chuckled. Lu Yin asked, is the starry fist really invincible? It really was the starry fist, but if it was invincible, why was the Fallen Star universe only worth a 2-star mission reward? He could not figure it out. After all, the Big Dipper Broken Stars had opened the Astral Fist manual for him. Even if it was difficult to cultivate since it was opened, there was a possibility of cultivating it, which was equivalent to giving him the possibility of being invincible. This was only worth a 2-star mission reward? Something was wrong, something was definitely wrong. 8 colors, is the Fallen Star universe only worth a 2-star mission reward? Lu Yin asked. 8 colors replied, yes. What? Don't you know that the starry fist is there? No comment. Lu Yin frowned. He did not know if they were kind enough to help him. Then would they have the same plan as Yuche? They couldn't learn the starry fist themselves, so they let him learn it and then snatch it from him? No, if he learned the invincible starry fist, who could snatch it away? Since it was invincible, no one could snatch it away. 8 colors must be hiding some purpose. Kid, why are you suddenly asking this? Did you learn the starry fist? The old man asked. Lu Yin said bluntly, yes. Interesting. Haha, old man, don't you care? Why should I care? Didn't you say it was an invincible fist technique? The old man chuckled. Little guy, isn't the word invincible incredible? Yes. In that case, what's there to worry about? If you think it's incredible, then it shouldn't exist. Besides, I know the starry fist too. Lu Yin raised his eyebrows. Every civilization that participated in the war that destroyed the 9 bases knew it, but no one could successfully cultivate it. This fist technique can indeed reach absolute invincibility, but it's also true that it can't be cultivated, the old man said. Lu Yin understood. No wonder 8 colors did not care about the Fallen Star universe. Everyone knew the starry fist, so what was there to hide? Chen Jian Yongxing had been in the Fallen Star universe for so many years, but he had not cultivated the starry fist to invincibility. At the same time, he also understood why the unknown did not do anything to the Fallen Star universe. Perhaps the unknown was also observing the Fallen Star universe to see if anyone could cultivate it. However, since the destruction of the 9 bases, the strongest person in the Fallen Star universe was Chen Jian Yongxing, and he had not cultivated anything. And 8 colors must know that the Big Dipper Remnant Star was the fist intent of the starry fist. They had even fought during the 9 bases era, so why would they pay attention to a fist intent that was on the verge of disappearing after so many years? Which stronghold does the starry fist belong to? Lu Yin asked. The 6th, the Black Unknown answered. Lu Yin understood. This meant that the well-dressed man who had teamed up with the Red Frost Stronghold's Fort Master and the 7 Strongholds Elder to fight the 10-eyed crow was the Fort Master of the 6th Stronghold. In that case, the invincible fist technique should also have been produced by this Fort Master. Chapter 44-46. Ha, old man, why are you so sure that the invincible power is the starry fist? Lu Yin asked. The old man replied, you already know the answer. Since you came to knowing whereabouts to ask, you must know something. I know that the starry fist destroyed a fishing civilization, Lu Yin said. Haha, Chi-Tun. What? The fishing civilization that was destroyed was called Chi-Tun, and it was one of the fishing civilizations that once besieged the humans' 9th stronghold. Their opponent was the 6th stronghold, and they were all destroyed by a single punch. It was truly tragic, but it's also a pity. This Chi-Tun civilization was actually not bad. If it had been another civilization that had attacked the 6th stronghold, such as those strange birds, they would have been destroyed with a single punch. Kid, you wouldn't have been able to teleport either. This innate gift is truly annoying. Lu Yin fell silent. The Chi-Tun civilization? There really was a fishing civilization that had been destroyed with a single punch. He could not imagine how resplendent that punch was to be able to destroy a fishing civilization. Does this Chi-Tun civilization still have any inheritances? No, it was destroyed with a single punch. The core space was completely destroyed. What a pity, the old man said. Lu Yin left knowing whereabouts, and his interrogation had gone smoothly. Perhaps the old man and the others were just lamenting about the past and casually mentioning it. However, the impact on Lu Yin's heart was huge. This was an invincible technique that even existences like the old man and patriarch Shan acknowledged. It would be great if he could learn it. More than 100 years had passed since he had last merged with a creature from Delight City. Lu Yin teleported in the direction of Delight City and rolled his die to see where it was. Dozens of days later, in a dark space, he saw a ball of light. He rushed over and merged with it. He opened his eyes. It wasn't Delight City? There was no booming music, nor was there a distant castle. There was only a dark underground, and there were strange skeletons in front of him. There were also source box arrays all over the place. Memories flooded in. Lu Yin quickly learned that he was within a cosmic civilization, and the creature that he had fused with had accidentally escaped from a source box that they had obtained from the core of the universe. It was exactly the same as the situation with Nine Heavens Universe's execution. It was the same thing. Execution had created a deathly stillness in Nina Firmament's universe and collected source boxes to create a source box array that would lead to the universe of death. This creature was the same, and it was about to succeed. He had collected almost all of the universe's most powerful source boxes. This civilization had immortal realm cultivators, but they were far inferior to those from the Ninth Heaven universe. There was no way for them to discover where this creature was or what it was doing. In fact, if it weren't for Lu Yin, it would have been difficult to find traces of Zhu in the Nine Firmaments universe. However, it was also impossible for Zhu to use his source box array to attract the Death universe. Lu Yin had not known about this back then, but now that he knew, the karmic phenomenon was more than enough to shield him from the Death universe. This civilization did not have any karmic celestial phenomena. Once this creature set up the source box array, it would be able to send a signal to the dead universe and draw it over. Lu Yin didn't know if this space civilization was lucky or not, but he was actually able to merge with this life form. Without hesitation, he rushed out of the ground and charged toward the eternal life realm of the universe. Then, as expected, he was killed instead. Before he died, Lu Yin saw the eternal life realm experts' confused gaze. They had been looking for this creature for a long time, but to no avail. Why did it suddenly seek death? In fact, if not for Lu Yin, he wouldn't have known about this universe. For the sake of civilization, he would not do that. After all, this creature had helped him collect so many source boxes, and this universe also had the Mother Tree and Eternal Life Realm experts, which were extremely valuable to Lu Yin. Unfortunately, he had no way of knowing its location, so he could not allow this creature to live. Otherwise, what would he do if he sent a signal to Lu City to change directions? It had not been easy for him to lure Lu City to the Divine Realm, and if he had not contacted them, things would have been even worse. Lu City was only one of the abysses of the Death universe, and Legu had withered away. There were other abysses in the Death universe, and if he attracted another one, it would be troublesome. This incident also reminded Lu Yin of something. There were countless civilizations in the three universes that had creatures like Zhu that wanted to attract the Death universe. If these creatures were not dealt with, they would become a hidden danger. But how could he deal with them? That was rather troublesome. Lu Yin continued to roll his die. After a period of time, Lu Yin merged with one of Lu City's skeletal creatures. Memories flowed into his body, and he relaxed when he learned that Lu City had not changed directions. After withdrawing from the fusion, he headed to Xiang City. It had been more than 100 years since he had sent Tua Lin there to observe others, so it was time to ask about the situation. Lu Yin arrived outside Xiang City and saw the stone golem lying in outer space, bored to death. It had built a meteorite city for itself, and it was filled with its people. Of course, there were also humans who lived and traded within. When it saw Lu Yin arrive, the stone golem hurriedly walked out, not daring to show any disrespect. "How is it?" Lu Yin asked. The stone golem replied, "Nothing out of the ordinary. Has Tua Lin ever come out?" "He came out a few years ago, but he usually comes out once every 10 years. It will be a few years before he comes out again." At this time, some people walked out of Xiang City, cursing as they did not see Lu Yin or the stone golem. Lu Yin frowned as he listened to their curses. It was time to limit the number of people who could enter Xiang City. The current Xiang City was much different than it had been in the past, and everyone was suspicious. The main reason was that too many people had entered, and some people did not follow the rules and exposed their identities. Of course, they had paid a price for doing so, but it could not make up for the losses that came with controlling Xiang City. Since Tua Lin had his own opportunities in Xiang City, Lu Yin could not let others get in the way. When he thought of this, he teleported back to the Tianyuan universe and gave the order to limit the number of people who could enter Xiang City. Anyone who wanted to enter Xiang City would have to be carefully selected. Only when Tua Lin completely left Xiang City would the restrictions be lifted. Lu Yin then entered Xiang City and turned into a bird, continuing to search for Tua Lin while using his wish force. Not long after he found Tua Lin. Tua Lin was currently helping someone repair a river, and he was sweating profusely. Qinghe was behind him, blocking the sun for him. Hui Qian, in his cat form, was relaxing under a tree in the distance. Lu Yin landed on the tree. "You're quite comfortable." The cat's fur stood on end and he subconsciously jumped up. He only relaxed when he saw that it was Lu Yin and spoke in a fawning voice, "Master, you're here." Lu Yin looked down at Hui Qian without saying a word. Hui Qian felt the pressure and hurriedly said, "Master, I'm not as comfortable as I look. I just rested for a while. I've been wandering around those people and listening to their conversations to see if I can help Master find anything. I'm also on guard against anyone trying to harm senior brother." "Then what did you hear?" "Master, you should really take care of those cultivators. They're all messing around when they come in. We've clearly restrained them from revealing themselves unless they're facing a life or death situation. However, when they came in, they were exposed and wanted to talk to the people here. In the end, they were burned by the people here. This makes things difficult for us. Now, everyone is looking at us like we're monsters and I can't get close to senior brother. Right?" Yan Ryu was almost dragged over and burned. Fortunately, senior brother promised to help repair the river and save it. "Do those people know that Xiaoyu has changed?" "They don't know, but they want to try." Lu Yin looked into the distance. "I've already instructed them to reduce the number of people entering as much as possible." That's good, that's good." Hui Qian smiled awkwardly, but he didn't dare say anything else. By the river, Tua Lin was working very hard. He was bent over with his back bent, but he was smiling as he talked to the others. When he was tired, he would drink water under a tree. There were also people who gave him steamed buns and other food. It was a very fulfilling day. It seemed difficult, but Tua Lin seemed to be enjoying himself. There was a tent in the distance and he slept there at night. Without waiting for Lu Yin to move, Hui Qian sprinted into the tent. He seemed very enthusiastic. Not long after, Tua Lin came out and ran excitedly to the tree. "Master." Lu Yin looked at Tua Lin. "Are you tired?" "I'm not tired, Master. I finally understand what it means to be fulfilled through hard work. This feeling is completely different from cultivation. It's easy to see the rewards of a mortal's hard work, but the world of cultivation is different. There are dangers at every step, but the deepest feeling is not the rewards. I like this kind of life." Tua Lin was happy. Lu Yin sighed. This child always gave people the feeling that he was simple-minded. His gaze was pure, but he wasn't stupid. He read a lot and could occasionally give Lu Yin insights. He also had a reverence for Lu Yin that was close to faith. Who wouldn't like such a disciple? "What about Xiaoyu? Is it hard?" "Master, it's not hard." Xiaoyu's voice entered Lu Yin's ears. It was very soft and comfortable, like a clear spring under the scorching sun. Lu Yin smiled. "That's good. It's good that you like this kind of life. I don't need you to be indomitable. Just be happy and be yourself." Hui Qian rolled his eyes. Tua Lin was excited and his breathing became hurried. "Yes, Master." "That's right, Master. I've been observing the people here all these years and found a strange phenomenon." "What phenomenon?" Lu Yin hurriedly asked. Tua Lin said, "Everyone's life here is a legacy." Lu Yin raised his eyebrows. "Legacy?" He knew that everyone in Xiang City had their own circle of life. The people here passed it down from generation to generation. Every generation didn't have a long lifespan, so they were still living in a fixed circle. It was indeed a legacy. But what method did they use to pass it down? "I found that many people are like a word," Tua Lin said. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. "What word?" "For example, the granny who sells vegetables on East Street. She grew vegetables in her own garden all her life. She ate them herself and sold them herself. She always walked the same path. It was difficult to make the granny take a detour. That garden had passed through many people, but the granny never married and the garden never stopped growing. I helped the granny fetch water and talk to her. After many years, when I saw the granny again, I saw a word on her, she. See? Yes, she. I don't know why, but when I saw the granny's disciple, I thought of this word. This was the heart of destiny. It was hidden in everyone's life, experience, and legacy. Lu Yin was excited. He had found it. He had finally found the heart of destiny. It was definitely it. Chapter 44-47. No wonder Yu Che couldn't find it. It had entered Xiang City as a fish, not a human. How could it communicate with those people? How could it see the words on their bodies? Those words weren't carved on their bodies. They were born because of the words. They weren't born as humans but as an experience, a kind of inheritance. No wonder no one could find it. This was something that only Tua Lin could find. The legendary invincible technique of the fifth stronghold. He wondered what it would be like if he could cultivate it. Tua Lin, open your heart and talk to them, Luin encouraged. Tua Lin nodded vigorously and said excitedly, Disciple understands, master. I like this feeling very much. Disciple has read many books. Books are written by people and every book has the writer's thoughts. Reading can help you comprehend principles, and talking to these people can also help you comprehend. Luin praised, Are you saying that they are like walking books? Tua Lin said, Yes, everyone is a walking book. Some people may not even know how to read but their life experience is also a book. This disciple used to think that there were no books that were exactly the same but I saw it here. A word represents a book and represents a person's life. This disciple wants to see what the lives of everyone here are like and what it would be like to read all their words. This disciple hopes to do it. Luin encouraged him again, Then do it. Master will wait for the day when you can read everyone's words. Thank you, Master. Takes Xiaoyu back. Tua Lin was very reluctant and wanted to talk to Luin, but someone woke up in the distance and asked loudly. Tua Lin had no choice but to return to his tent to rest. Watching Tua Lin leave, Luin said to Hui Kan, Protect your senior. You can't let anything happen to him. What he saw now represents the past glory of humanity. Hui Kan was surprised. Past glory? Hui Kan wasn't stupid. On the contrary, he was very smart and Luin didn't need to hide it from him. Everyone had entered Xiang City to find a way to control it, and Tua Lin was the only person who had entered. He could also see the life experiences of those in Xiang City, so he guessed that Tua Lin had probably found a way to control Xiang City. Luin said, Your senior's opportunity is here. Protect him well. In the future he will help you find the opportunity that belongs to you. Hui Kan nodded silently, Understood, Master. Luin looked at Hui Kan, You are very smart and are naturally suited for the world of cultivation. However, because you are too smart, you have missed out on many things. Spend more time with your senior. What he sees is different from what you see. Your future may not necessarily lie with me but with your senior. Hui Kan respectfully acknowledged. Luin did not lie to him. Tua Lin's heart was pure, and he saw things differently from everyone else. Hui Kan was the exact opposite. Although he did not have any bad intentions, he was vicious and merciless and he knew how to scheme. There were far too many cultivators with such thoughts. Luin could give him a powerful inheritance, but he could not give him an inheritance that was comparable to the heart's undivided affinity. Some people could only rely on themselves to obtain their own opportunities. He also hoped that Hui Kan would be able to obtain a powerful inheritance. After all, Hui Kan was a descendant of the Hui ancestor. The Hui ancestor had sacrificed too much for human civilization, and without him, Luin would not be where he was today. As for the heart's affinity technique, Luin didn't necessarily need to learn it. It was impossible for him to learn all of its powerful abilities. It would be best if Tua Lin could learn it, and no matter how he looked at it, Tua Lin was the most suitable for the heart technique. Because he had read a lot. After leaving Xiang City, Luin returned to the Tianyuan universe and entered the Mirage domain. He wanted to cultivate the Starry Fist. Cultivating the Starry Sky Fist would allow one to become invincible and destroy an entire fishing civilization with a single punch. It had to be said that this made him very tempted. Perhaps cultivating this fist technique would take up a lot of time, but what he did not lack the most was time. He stood on the banks of the river of time and closed his eyes. The Astral Fist manual appeared in his mind. The Big Dipper Fist Star was just one of them. He had ignited the Big Dipper Fist Star, but it was as small as a firefly in front of the enormous Astral Fist manual. What he needed to do was ignite all the fist stars until they covered the entire constellation. Then he would use the power of the constellations to unleash the strongest starry fist. Countless constellations were equivalent to stars, and this was the true starry fist. The path of cultivation was clear and the method was simple. He just had to comprehend the power of the fist and continuously increase the power of each star. Different stars had different profound meanings. Luin stood on the banks of the river of time for 100 years. Of course, time did not flow in the outside world, but he kept track of it. In 100 years, he had ignited 3 stars, which meant that he had comprehended 3 different profound meanings from the Astral Fist manual. However, the stars in the sky were endless, and it would take longer to comprehend the profound meanings. Luin suddenly opened his eyes as beads of sweat dripped down his forehead. No, that was wrong. He watched as the Astral Fist manual extinguished the 3 stars that he had ignited. Igniting them was one thing, and he could still unleash a starry fist with these 3 stars. However, the profound meaning of igniting these 3 stars originated from the Big Dipper fist star. He had comprehended the power of the fist under the Big Dipper fist star's profound meaning. Was it his own fist force or the fist force of the person who had unleashed the Big Dipper fist star's fist force? If he continued cultivating and ignited all the stars, the starry fist that he unleashed would not be his own, as the foundation would belong to someone else. This was something he could accept. Looking at the various battle techniques that he had cultivated, not all of them had been created by him. Many of them had been created by others and he had simply learned them. What he could not accept was that using someone else's foundation to comprehend the profound meaning of a fist technique would take too long. It was like a person doing something that they liked and were good at would take a short time to complete, and the results would be good. However, if they were doing something that someone else was good at, the results would not be half as good. Half was already an optimistic estimate. Igniting the stars in the sky, let alone half the time, even a fifth or a tenth of the time would be very long. Not to mention the effects. Lu Yin watched as the river of time flowed. In the distance, Zhao Ran calmly rowed a boat past him without disturbing him. Although Lu Yin's eyes were open, he was deep in thought. After a while, he released the starry sky in his heart, and the stars began to revolve. This was the cosmic art. In the past, he had felt that the starry fist and the cosmic art were similar in some ways. One was a fist technique that was cultivated by a civilization and did not focus on power. That was what Lu Yin felt. The cosmic art did not focus on power but rather on speed and range. Both the starry fist and the cosmic art required a sky full of stars. He wondered if the cosmic art would be of any help to the starry fist. He continued to cultivate. Time continued to pass and Lu Yin did not know how much time had passed. When he opened his eyes again he was pleasantly surprised but not much. The cosmic art had indeed increased the cultivation speed of the starry fist. Within the range of the cosmic art he could see every inch of the stars regardless of how far they were. When Lu Yin had first fused with the cosmic art stars that progenitor Chen had left behind, he had suppressed a powerful enemy and saved the blood progenitor. Back then, his strength had not reached that far, and he had relied on the cosmic art. Now, when he cultivated the starry fist, he used the cosmic art as a reference to see and immerse himself in the stars. He had improved but the speed was not satisfactory. Lu Yin thought about it and decided to ask progenitor Chen for help. The cosmic art had been created by progenitor Chen, and his talent in cultivating battle techniques was unparalleled. Even Lu Yin did not dare to say that he could surpass progenitor Chen in terms of battle techniques. After leaving the Mirage domain, Lu Yin fused with the Xuanhuan universe and quickly found progenitor Chen. Progenitor Chen had never given up on searching for Wang Xiaoyu. Back then, he had been destroyed by the transparent balancer's sword. If not for his life force source protecting him, he would have been dead by now until Lu Yin used the Nirvana tree to revive him. However, that disaster had been a blessing in disguise, and progenitor Chen's power had soared to near the peak of bitter adversity under the Nirvana tree. Even now he was still searching for Wang Xiaoyu. Lu Yin admired progenitor Chen's fearless spirit. He also wanted to focus on finding the transparent balancer, but what could he do even if he did? Perhaps it would be the same as progenitor Chen, a matter of one sword? Progenitor Chen's stubbornness seemed foolish, but this was who he was. Without this stubbornness, there would be no progenitor Chen who had been invincible all over the world. There would be no progenitor Chen who had guarded the burial garden for countless years just to comprehend and defeat the eternal battle technique. Starry Fist. Progenitor Chen was puzzled. Lu Yin said, "It's an absolutely invincible fist technique that can destroy a fishing civilization with one punch." Progenitor Chen was shocked, but he did not believe it. He was stubborn but he was not stupid. Destroying a fishing civilization with one punch? How was that possible? The more he understood fishing civilizations, the more he knew that this was unrealistic. Progenitor Chen's fishing civilizations that had fought with human civilization destroyed with one punch. Black Apocalypse civilization? 100 seals could seal Patriarch Shan. Mudwater Nation? An IB Luo's strength left a lingering fear. Immortal Plume civilization? They had already escaped with their teleportation. Unknowns? What a joke. The transparent balancer that they were helpless against was just one of the unknowns. The unknowns were unfathomable. Perhaps only technological civilizations could be destroyed with one punch, but the premise was that their location could be found. Furthermore, they did not have any hidden ultimate weapons. Progenitor Chen knew the strength of fishing civilizations very well, so he did not believe it. Lu Yin was helpless. I didn't believe it at first, but this is what Patriarch Shan said. I also went to the unknowns to verify it, so it should be true. Progenitor Chen's eyes lit up. Okay, let's study it. In fact, he did not have any clues at all. He was just relying on his intuition. In the Mirage domain, Lu Yin released the starry sky in his heart and drew the Astral Fist manual in the starry sky. Progenitor Chen stood in the starry sky in Lu Yin's heart and looked at the Astral Fist manual. His body released the cosmic art. He also felt that there were similarities between the two. Further away, Chen Jian Yongxing was also brought here. After all, he was the inheritor of the starry fist. Chapter 44-48. Lu Yin looked at Progenitor Chen. Previously, I relied on the Big Dipper Fist star left behind by my ancestors to comprehend the Astral Fist manual. Now, I'm using the Big Dipper Fist star to help you comprehend it. Lu Yin clenched his right fist, and the Big Dipper Fist star ignited within the Astral Fist manual as he punched out. Chen Jian Yongxing looked at the punch. This was the true fist intent of the Big Dipper. It was unknown which ancestor had left behind the power of the Big Dipper's remnant stars, but it was fundamentally different from them relying on the Big Dipper's remnant stars. When he looked at Lu Yin, it was as if he was looking at the Big Dipper Fist star. Lu Yin punched out, and the fist intent blasted towards Progenitor Chen. Progenitor Chen stood still as the fist intent approached him. Chen Jian Yongxing's eyes widened. No, this couldn't possibly form the Big Dipper Fist star. The Big Dipper Fist star was the pinnacle of fist intent, and it had been left behind for countless years. This punch was clearly an offensive punch, so how could it leave behind a fist intent? Chen Jian Yongxing was about to remind him. Lu Yin punched out a second time, and the second fist intent was even faster as it approached the first fist intent. Then there was a third, fourth and fifth fist. Lu Yin punched out continuously until the moment the first fist intent was about to hit Progenitor Chen. All the fist intents fused together to form a solid fist intent in front of Progenitor Chen. The fist intent solidified and condensed into a star, the Big Dipper Fist star. Chen Jian Yongxing was shocked. This could actually be done? This Lu Yin was only at the entry level of the Astral Fist, and he couldn't form a fist star that had been left behind since ancient times. However, he was able to fuse many fist intents together to form a fist star. How did he think of this? However, this fist star would quickly dissipate. Lu Yin had encountered more than one opponent who had used time stagnation to fuse battle techniques and explode with power, such as Chu Yuan's Time Realm and Gan Mo's Blood Blade. Thus, it was easy for him to come up with a solution. Progenitor Chen looked at the Big Dipper Fist star that was right in front of him and took a step forward to collide with it. Chen Jian Yongxing was stunned. Shouldn't he be comprehending it? What was the meaning of this? Lu Yin hadn't punched him and Progenitor Chen had collided with it. He suddenly felt that there was something wrong with the people from the three universes, and their thoughts were baffling. The surface of Progenitor Chen's body was constantly bombarded by the Big Dipper Fist intent, but it could not stop him from entering the Big Dipper Fist star. Lu Yin didn't use his full strength, only his fist intent. Otherwise, not to mention Progenitor Chen, even an Eternal Realm expert like Qin Jian would have been severely injured by his fist intent. His goal was to let Ancestor Chen comprehend it. On the surface of Progenitor Chen's body, his outer clothes exploded, revealing countless sword scars. This was the sword intent of the Transparent Balance Envoy. Even with the Nirvana tree's rebirth, it could not be erased. Thunderous explosions continuously bombarded the surface of Progenitor Chen's body, but Progenitor Chen's eyes grew brighter and brighter. He saw every punch that Lu Yin threw out, saw the profound meaning of the Big Dipper Fist star, and also saw the Astral Fist manual. His body abruptly pierced through the Big Dipper Fist star, and in that instant, it was as if he could see Lu Yin's fist strike out again. This time, it pierced through his body and caused the Astral Fist manual to become clearer. He stood where he was and closed his eyes. Chen Jian Yongxing looked at Lu Yin. Lu Yin heaved a sigh of relief. As expected, Progenitor Chen was blessed by the heavens when it came to battle techniques. If it was him, he might not be able to achieve enlightenment. The Big Dipper remnant star was left behind by the ancestor who had truly comprehended the Starry Sky Fist. What he had struck out was merely the Big Dipper Fist intent. Even so, Ancestor Chen was able to comprehend it. Lu Yin waited patiently for a long time before Progenitor Chen opened his eyes. He faced Lu Yin and punched out. Lu Yin's eyes widened. Good. He also punched out. With a loud bang, the two Big Dipper Fist intents collided. The power wasn't great, but Chen Jian Yongxing was thoroughly shocked. He really comprehended it? What the hell, he could even comprehend it? How high was his talent? Qin Jian Yongxing had been spurred on by his masters to cultivate, but he still couldn't comprehend the Astral Fist manual. His master's cultivation of the Starry Sky Fist far surpassed Master Lu's, but even so he still couldn't comprehend it. Yet this person had actually been enlightened by Master Lu. This was no longer something that could be explained by talent. What was going on with this guy? He actually didn't believe that Progenitor Chen could comprehend it. But at this moment his worldview was turned upside down. Luin laughed. Congratulations, Senior, for comprehending the Starry Sky Fist. Progenitor Chen looked at his hands and was somewhat excited. This fist technique is good, very good. It's quite compatible with me, especially the cosmic art. Luin nodded. Not bad. That's why I thought of you, Senior. I hope that I can borrow Senior's attainments in the cosmic art to help me cultivate the Starry Sky Fist. He was actually just giving it a try. He wasn't sure if Progenitor Chen could comprehend the Astral Fist manual, but he didn't expect Progenitor Chen to actually comprehend it. It was a pleasant surprise. Progenitor Chen clenched his fist, loosened it, and clenched it again. This fist technique seems to be created for me. Does it belong to the sixth barrier? The sixth barrier, the strongest and invincible Starry Sky Fist. How good would it be if I was born during the 9 Strongholds era? Progenitor Chen muttered to himself. He then looked at Luin and released the cosmic art. Luin released the cosmic art at the same time. He directly ignored Qin Jian Yongxing and used the cosmic art and Starry Sky Fist to test each other. Not only did Luin want to increase the speed of cultivating the Starry Sky Fist, but he also wanted to carve out his own path. Qin Jian Yongxing looked at the two cultivating and smiled happily. There was hope for the human race's inheritance. Masters, you can all rest in peace. If he couldn't do it, there would always be someone who could. In the long river of time, Xiaoran looked at Luin and Progenitor Chen and smiled as well. She then rowed the boat and hummed a song as she gradually left. Luin deeply understood the saying that cultivation knew nothing about time. 1,000 years had passed. Of course, it was only 1,000 years in the Mirage domain. However, this was the longest time Luin had ever spent cultivating a battle technique. Even 1,000 years didn't feel like a long time to him. On the contrary, his comprehension of the Starry Sky Fist was becoming more and more confused. He only needed to light up the stars one by one, but the more he cultivated and the more he could see each star clearly with the cosmic art, the more he felt like he couldn't continue cultivating. It was as if there was a wall in front of him. Luin was all too familiar with this feeling. How many years had he been building a wall of his heart? Before the wall of his heart could be built, the wall of the Starry Sky Fist appeared in front of him. There was a contradictory feeling of helplessness. He was clearly moving forward, but he felt like he was moving backward. Compared to 1,000 years ago, his comprehension of the Starry Sky Fist was even worse. Progenitor Chen stopped using the cosmic art and opened his eyes to look at Luin. He frowned. It's useless to cultivate like this. The sixth barrier definitely doesn't cultivate the Starry Sky Fist like this. Luin looked at Qin Jian Yongxing. Senior, did your masters mention how to cultivate the Starry Sky Fist? Qin Jian Yongxing recalled, because I've never comprehended the Starry Sky Fist manual, my masters didn't say much. They only mentioned it before they died. The stars of civilization, the stars of man. Luin was puzzled. The stars of civilization? The stars of man? Qin Jian Yongxing nodded. My masters didn't say much about this, so I forgot about it. I wouldn't have remembered if you hadn't mentioned it. Luin looked at Progenitor Chen. Progenitor Chen didn't understand either. He was extremely talented when it came to battle techniques, but this was clearly not just about battle techniques. It was more about civilization. Luin sat cross-legged and closed his eyes, deep in thought. No one disturbed him. Progenitor Chen also closed his eyes and pondered about the Starry Sky Fist. Qin Jian Yongxing hoped that Luin could comprehend this sentence. However, no matter how talented Luin was, he had never experienced the 9 Bases era. His masters had walked out of the 9 Bases era. If they couldn't express it clearly, how could Luin comprehend it? Sometimes, the comprehension of certain words didn't depend on one's knowledge, but one's position. The understanding of a frog in a well was different from that of a swan. In terms of cultivation, Luin had not achieved immortality and could not compare to Qin Jian Yongxing's masters. In terms of experience, he had never cultivated in the 6th stronghold. However, he was the current master of civilization. The moment he comprehended the Starry Sky Fist manual, he could see that this battle technique was more of a civilization's inheritance. He was thinking from the perspective of the master of civilization. On the other hand, Qin Yongxing and his masters had always been thinking from the perspective of individual cultivators. The two of them had different perspectives and naturally saw different things. Lu Yin might not be able to comprehend it that easily, but it was not as impossible as Qin Yongxing thought. After some time, Lu Yin opened his eyes and looked at progenitor Qin. The cultivation inheritance of the Starry Sky Fist has been lost. It's not possible to walk the path of our predecessors for the time being. So let's see if we can try to find our own path. Oh, progenitor Qin asked. Lu Yin said, the Starry Sky Fist manual uses the stars as a fist. Then let's learn by observing the stars. The more you forget, the more you learn. Progenitor Qin praised, obtaining the inheritance, learning it and breaking it. Especially when faced with such an invincible force, your courage is extraordinary. You are worthy of standing at the peak of human civilization. Lu Yin said helplessly, if there was a complete inheritance, I wouldn't want to do this either. I can only give it a try. With the Starry Sky Fist manual as the foundation and the Starry Sky Fist as the form, I hope to see that invincible punch again with your talent. Progenitor Qin laughed. You think too highly of me. I Xiaoshang admit that my talent in battle techniques is rare, but I dare not say that I surpass the countless heroes of the Ninth Stronghold era. However, I still have the courage to give it a try. Lu Yin stood up. There's a planet called Earth. You can see the stars. The reason why I chose this place is because Earth is in a galaxy called the Milky Way. Milky Way? Progenitor Qin did not understand. Qin Yongxing was shocked. Milky Way? Lu Yin looked at Qin Yongxing. Unsurprisingly, Qin Yongxing knew about the Milky Way. The Milky Way was the six strongholds' turbid treasure. Perhaps Qin Yongxing did not understand what the turbid treasure meant, but he learned it from his masters. Chapter 44-49. Lu Yin brought progenitor Qin to the highest peak on Earth, allowing the planet to rotate as they watched the stars. To them, no matter where they stood, they could clearly see the stars in the sky. Just as Lu Yin had said, he had chosen Earth to get a good omen. 10 years passed and Lu Yin was still looking at the stars. Earth had day and night, but their gazes transcended the heavens, and the stars never left their sight. Another 10 years passed and Lu Yin was still looking at the stars. He looked at the stars that he was familiar with, hoping to incorporate them into the Astral Fist manual and find his own fist intent. 10 years after 10 years, 10 years after 10 years. It had been 40 years since they had arrived on Earth. On this day, meteors streaked across the sky, and the night sky was beautiful. Lu Yin's gaze returned to Earth, and he watched the meteor shower with countless Earthlings. Each meteor was like a fist intent that streaked across the sky. He hoped to grasp these fist intents, but they were not real. Every fist intent needed to be comprehended, and he could do it, but it would take a long time. He looked at progenitor Qin and he didn't know when it had started, but progenitor Qin's aura had become incomparably calm. The fist intent that he had comprehended over 1,000 years had completely dissipated, but it had not disappeared. Instead, it had merged into the stars in the distance. What was that? These stars had originally come from progenitor Qin and serious art. In the past, Lu Yin had used these stars to defeat powerful enemies and save respected seniors. Now these stars carried progenitor Qin's fist intent, and they were connected to each other as they gradually spread throughout the entire sky. Lu Yin knew that progenitor Qin had comprehended something. He had made the right choice in asking progenitor Qin for help. Not only did progenitor Qin possess an unparalleled talent for battle techniques, but he was also compatible with the stars in the sky. The serious art that he had created had seamlessly merged with the Astral Fist. In Lu Yin's eyes, his Astral Fist manual had changed. The stars arranged themselves into a familiar starry sky, like a miniature Milky Way. They gradually floated, and finally, with progenitor Qin at the center, the world spun. Progenitor Qin opened his eyes, raised his arm and punched out. The stars lit up and he followed up with another punch. The stars revolved and were constantly lit up. It was like the serious art but also the Astral Fist. With a bang, the starry sky trembled as numerous stars lit up. The might of Ancestor Qin's punches grew stronger and stronger, but the time it took for each punch to be unleashed grew longer and longer. 10 years, 20 years, 50 years went by, and more stars were lit up as progenitor Qin continued to unleash his punches. The Astral Fist manual continued to expand and spread towards the outerverse. Lu Yin did not disturb him. He just watched as progenitor Qin threw out countless punches. Right now, the power of a single punch from progenitor Qin was enough to rival a limit expert below eternal immortality. Progenitor Chen was only in the primordial realm right now. He had relied on the Nirvana tree's cultivation method to cross realms and reach great perfection. The Nirvana tree technique was also a way for many experts in the three universes to challenge those of a higher realm. However, regular cultivators would only be able to challenge ordinary bitter tribulation experts as primordial realm experts at most. Those who were close to great perfection of bitter tribulation were on another level. Ancestor Chen did it, shocking countless people. Now, he had relied on his own comprehension of the astral fist to surpass great perfection of bitter tribulation, reaching the limit below eternal immortality. If he took another step forward, he would be a rogue. In the current human civilization, powerhouses like Qing Xing, Dan Hong, and the Great Master had once reached the limit below eternal immortality. They could use the eternal substance to fight, and they could use the Nirvana tree to reach the level of a rogue. However, they were all at the limit below eternal immortality. They were not like Progenitor Chen, who had crossed realms and reached the level of a rogue. There were very few people who could do this, and now Progenitor Chen had appeared. Lu Yin was very certain that once Progenitor Chen set foot in bitter tribulation, he would be able to reach the level of a rogue with the Nirvana tree and the astral fist. Another 50 years passed before Progenitor Chen slowly pulled back his arm. He had punched for 110 years, and Lu Yin did not even bother to count how many stars he had lit up. This was Progenitor Chen's own astral fist manual, and the stars he had lit up were far from enough for the entire manual. However, Lu Yin was already satisfied. If Progenitor Chen could reach this step, it meant that he could completely light up his astral fist manual. When that time came, the power of his astral fist would be enough to make people look forward to it. At the same time, it also proved that this path could be taken. Progenitor Chen raised his head and looked at the sky for a long time before turning back to Lu Yin. My astral fist manual is completely different from the one you helped me to comprehend. Although I have walked my own path, this path is very narrow, so narrow that I can't breathe. Senior, what do you mean? Lu Yin did not understand. Progenitor Chen looked into the distance in a daze. I will do my best to widen this path and... He paused for a moment. I am about to reach the level of bitter tribulation. Lu Yin was surprised and smiled. Congratulations, Senior. When I reach the level of bitter tribulation, we will test the astral fist together. I believe that I will have other insights by then, so you don't have to rush. Of course, we won't wait too long. When I reach the level of bitter tribulation, we will enter the mirage domain to test the astral fist together. It will be very quick. All right. Lu Yin understood. Progenitor Chen left Earth. Lu Yin did not know where he was going, but it must be related to bitter tribulation. He hoped that Progenitor Chen would be able to find his true bitter tribulation. Since he was on Earth, he might as well visit his old friends. With a sweep of his consciousness, he knew the situation on Earth like the back of his hand. Several old friends were there. Lu Yin teleported to Nanjing, where he found Zhou Shan watering the flowers in an antique courtyard. Zhou Shan had aged a lot since he had lived for thousands of years. His cultivation was actually very low, and if not for the resources he had used to forcefully raise his cultivation, he would not have been able to live until now. He looked weathered, but his mental state was good. Knock knock knock. Who is it? An old friend. Zhou Shan, who was watering the flowers in the courtyard, suddenly paused and looked up. Was this Lu Yin? He hurried over to open the door and saw Lu Yin. Lu Yin smiled at him. Long time no see. Zhou Shan looked at Lu Yin and was so excited that he did not know what to say. Please come in, quickly come in. Lu Yin smiled and walked into the courtyard. The courtyard was not large, and with Zhou Shan's status, he could have a courtyard of any size he wanted. He could even enter the above sky sect. However, he had spent his entire life on Earth and would not go anywhere. To him, material pursuits were a thing of the past, and memories were the most precious. Take a seat, I'll make some tea. Zhou Shan was busy and Lu Yin did not stop him. He was very happy to see an old friend again. How long had it been since he had last met Zhou Shan? More than 2,000 years. Such a long time seemed like a lifetime to Zhou Shan, but to Lu Yin, it was very, very fast. It had been 170 years since he had entered Earth, and in the blink of an eye 170 years had passed, but Lu Yin felt nothing. Time seemed fair, but it felt different for different people. He had come to Earth during this period and seen Zhou Shan, but he had not disturbed him. Compared to the last time they had met, Zhou Shan and his daughter Zhou Cece had been rather reserved. Now that Lu Yin's status was higher, Zhou Shan was more relaxed, as if they were really old friends. Lu Yin was busy for a while before settling down. There was tea, snacks, and a booklet in front of Lu Yin. Lu Yin curiously picked up the booklet and flipped it open. It was filled with images of people. "What's this?" Zhou Shan said. "I'm old and I'm afraid I'll forget them, so I drew them out to reminisce." The booklet was filled with people he had encountered during Earth's apocalypse. Lu Yin recognized some of them and some of them he did not. Some of them even held grudges. But to Zhou Shan they were all memories. There was Li Hongliang, the strongest captain of Jinling's penal camp, Feng Hong, Luo Yun, Qin Xian, Huansha from the capital, Elder Lian, and so on. Lu Yin flipped through them one by one, his memories flowing and gradually becoming clearer. He had not forgotten these, but with thousands of years of memories and Lu Xiaoxuan's memories, there were many things that did not need to be remembered. Zhou Shan was different. He only had these memories. He had not left Earth much in his life, and these memories were extremely precious to him. He flipped to the last page. It was Zhou Cixi and many other members of the Zhou family. He had placed the genealogy with the people in his memories. Lu Yin put down the booklet. "You can live for a long time. If nothing unexpected happens, the resources will be enough to push you to the level of an emissary. There's no need for this." Zhou Shan laughed and waved his hand. "I rejected those resources." "What? It's good to live for a long time, but it's hard to watch old friends leave one by one." Zhou Shan smiled at Lu Yin. "I'm really happy that you came to see me. I thought we would never meet again." Lu Yin picked up the teapot and poured tea for Zhou Shan. If it had been the Zhou Shan of 2,000 years ago, he might have felt somewhat restrained, but now he truly regarded Lu Yin as an old friend. Lu Yin took a sip of tea and looked at him. "Do me a favor." Zhou Shan did not understand. "What can I do for you?" Lu Yin's voice was melancholic. "Help me keep my memories." "What do you mean?" "He's alive." Zhou Shan was taken aback. "Is it helpful?" Lu Yin nodded and looked him in the eye. "Everyone has the right to choose between life and death. Your experience may have made you wish to face death normally, and I'm being selfish by doing this. But to me, if you live, then it means that my past is also alive. But you have many old friends around you. As time passes, even if..." Chapter 4450. She died because of a celestial phenomenon. She could have lived as long as I did or even longer. But she died. At that moment my heart turned cold. I have descendants, but they are not Cixi. So many years have passed. I left Earth and went to the above heaven sect. I've seen the splendor of life and I have no regrets. That's why I can face death and wait for the final moment. But this moment is a luxury for you. You will never be able to wait for a natural death. Lu Yin, I'm sorry. Lu Yin laughed. What's there to be sorry about? Zhou Shan closed his eyes. We are all under your protection, but you can't even choose your own death. We can die of old age. It's unfair to you. Lu Yin took another sip of tea. You think too much. Who wants to die if they can live? Immortality is everyone's goal. Zhou Shan put down his teacup. I'll try my best to live. As long as you need me, I'll hold on until the day you don't want to see me anymore. Ha ha ha. Lu Yin laughed. Zhou Shan laughed as well. Come, have a taste. This is the dessert I made. See if it's the same as Miss Longxi's. Longxi came here before? She sent me desserts. Let me try. It's not the same. It's not as good as Longxi's. Really? I think it's about the same. Much worse. This was made by Longxi. I couldn't bear to eat it last time and kept it until now. Lu Yin, not long after, Bai Shui came as well. She was the last person Zhou Shan could talk to on Earth. She also brought Shangqing. Lu Yin looked at Shangqing and then at Bai Shui. He was not surprised. They chatted for a while and mentioned Zhang Dingtian and the rest. Old Zhang and the rest went to Jupiter and never came back. It's been a long time, Zhou Shan said. Lu Yin was surprised. Jupiter? Why did they go there? Zhou Shan shook his head. Bai Shui said, my sister went there too. And that Lu Xiaoga, Shangqing said. Lu Yin was surprised. Bai Qian is back? Bai Shui nodded. Bai Qian was an unforgettable name. Although she hadn't appeared many times, Lu Yin had always remembered her in his heart. They had worked together to scheme against hyperspace, but she had been captured by the Eternals. She had used the corpses of Eternal Realm cultivators to protect herself, and she had eventually disappeared without a trace. Even Lu Yin had not been able to find her back then. He didn't expect her to come back. Zhang Dingtian, Bai Qian, and Lu Xiaoga had all gone to Jupiter? And they had all gone missing. How do you know that they're missing? Lu Yin asked. Zhou Shan said, I contacted the sect above the heavens, but they couldn't find him. Lu Yin looked at Jupiter and stood up. It's time for me to leave. I'll go take a look. Zhou Shan and the rest also stood up to bid Lu Yin farewell. After he left, Bai Shui looked at Zhou Shan. "You've changed." Zhou Shan smiled and said, "I have to find a time to go to the Above Heaven sect and ask for some resources so that I can live longer." Lu Yin teleported to Jupiter and saw a familiar altar. The only difference was that the stone on the altar had cracked. There were footprints in the surroundings which probably belonged to Zhang Dingtian and the others. Why did they come here? Lu Yin walked around the altar but couldn't find the reason. The altar is dedicated to chaos. It was created before human civilization. Chaos had been the master of the Xuanhuan universe, and Earth had been destroyed every once in a while because of chaos power. Earth had also been the place where chaos lived. Now Lu Yin didn't know where chaos was. Lu Yin had used the sphere to suppress chaos power and solve the problem of Earth's continuous destruction. Logically speaking, this matter should have come to an end, unless chaos returned. But now the sphere had cracked and Zhang Dingtian and the others had gone missing. What was the connection? Lu Yin pressed one hand on the altar and waved it casually. The starry sky trembled and the power of chaos dissipated. In the past he had needed the sphere to suppress chaos power, but now he could directly disperse it. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that even if chaos faced him, it would be difficult for him to threaten his life unless he had the strength of 3 universal laws. He wasn't afraid of chaos, let alone this power that had been left behind for countless years. After looking at the altar for a while, Lu Yin looked around the Xuanhuan universe and at the same time looked at the parallel universes, trying to find Zhang Dingtian and the others. After more than half a month, Lu Yin withdrew the sphere and couldn't find them. Zhang Dingtian and the others shouldn't be in the Xuanhuan universe, but where could they have gone? Jupiter had once been able to bring people to the cosmic tree because of the sourcebox array, but the cosmic tree was also a part of the Xuanhuan universe. Lu Yin could see that with a single glance, and Zhang Dingtian and the others' disappearance had nothing to do with the array. Could it be that this altar had the ability to send people to a certain place? He hadn't thought about it before. The sphere shattered and whatever ability it contained disappeared. Lu Yin left Jupiter. Everyone had their own destiny and he didn't force it. When it was time to appear, it would appear. A few years later, a string in the Xuanhuan universe vibrated. Lu Yin looked over and saw that Progenitor Chen had stepped into the realm of bitter adversity. He relaxed and didn't ask what Progenitor Chen's bitter adversity was. After Progenitor Chen stabilized, Lu Yin brought him into the Mirage domain to continue cultivating the Starry Fist. This time, Progenitor Chen's attainments and speed of the Starry Fist were completely different from before. He constantly lit up stars, which stunned Lu Yin. He had thought that Earth's speed of lighting up stars was already fast enough, but now Progenitor Chen was still continuing. Progenitor Chen's astral fist encompassed the entire outerverse, and at this moment he had practically lit up all the stars in the outerverse. But it was still not enough. Halfway through, he left the Mirage domain and incorporated the Innerverse and Neoverse into the Astral Fist manual, continuing to light up stars. Lu Yin stood within Progenitor Chen's Astral Fist manual and continuously moved towards the lit stars, hoping to find his own path. Time continued to pass, and they didn't know how long they had stayed in the Mirage domain. Perhaps it was 100 years or perhaps 1,000 years. On this day, Progenitor Chen used his own Starry Fist and circulated the Astral Fist manual. Starry Fist intent gathered as he punched towards Lu Yin. Lu Yin looked at Progenitor Chen's fist and didn't dodge. He allowed Progenitor Chen's fist to hit him, and he remained unscathed. Progenitor Chen didn't use the Nirvana Tree's technique to attack. His current Starry Fist was at most comparable to the peak of power below eternal life. If he used the Nirvana Tree's technique, he would be able to reach the level of a rogue, which was in line with Lu Yin's speculations. Furthermore, compared to Qing Xing and the other experts who had used the Nirvana Tree to reach the level of a rogue, Progenitor Chen had more space. His Starry Fist was far from perfection, and he had just stepped into bitter adversity. Once he reached the peak of bitter adversity or even the peak of power below eternal life, his strength would definitely surpass that of ordinary eternal life realm cultivators. He would become an existence that was close to Lu Yin's. How is it? Progenitor Chen asked. He was using this fist to enlighten Lu Yin. He hoped that he could help Lu Yin find his own path. Lu Yin shook his head. He had seen Progenitor Chen's Starry Fist, and he could use the serious art. However, he always felt that it wasn't his own. If Progenitor Chen could find his own path, why couldn't Lu Yin do the same? The Starry Fist and the Astral Fist manual were their foundations, and Progenitor Chen had used them to find his own path. Lu Yin had achieved his goal. He had seen how Progenitor Chen had found his own path, which had been his original goal. He wanted to use Progenitor Chen's innate gift to see how this path worked. Now, Progenitor Chen had walked out. He was still in the same spot. "Perhaps you and I are fundamentally different," Progenitor Chen said. His tone was low as he looked at Lu Yin. "I created the serious art. You want to use the serious art, but you also want to use me to find your own starry fist. In that case, you will only obtain my understanding of the starry fist, not yours. I told you that the starry fist I comprehended is too narrow. It's so narrow that I can't breathe. Obtain the inheritance, learn the inheritance, and break the inheritance. I did it, and you can do it too." Lu Yin and Progenitor Chen looked at each other. "Narrow?" Progenitor Chen nodded, his gaze heavy. "Yes, narrow. This is how I feel about my starry fist. It's like being trapped in a cage. Although the cage is huge, there is an upper limit." Lu Yin's eyes widened. A cage, an upper limit. He took a step out and left the Mirage domain. He stepped into the Xuanhuan universe and looked at the sky and the stars. That's right, this was a cage. Who said that the starry fist needed to light up the stars? The Big Dipper remnant star had given Lu Yin the Astral Fist manual, allowing him to see the path of the starry fist. It needed to light up the stars, but the stars might not necessarily be the stars. He thought of Patriarch Shan's star-toed star-plucking hand. It plucked the stars, but it could use civilization as the stars. It plucked the square inch and unleashed a terrifying attack that could overturn everything. In that case, could he use civilization as the stars? Lighting up civilization was lighting up the stars? There was an upper limit to the universe, but there was no upper limit to the square inch. They had told themselves countless times that the square inch was vast and that they must know their limits. However, they had forgotten that this vast civilization could also be used by them. Thinking of this, he teleported to the top of the mother tree and looked at the square inch. Since using the universe as the Astral Fist manual was very narrow, then he would use the square inch as the Astral Fist manual. Who could say that there was an upper limit to the boundless square inch? If he could really reach the upper limit, then he himself would have become the upper limit. Within the Mirage domain, Progenitor Chen sighed. Lu Yin's cultivation talent was definitely not below his own, and he had been able to comprehend the way out with just a few words. This was also the reason why he had asked Progenitor Chen to help him cultivate the Astral Fist. This child's talent was extremely high, and he had a good eye for people. He was vicious and merciless, but he was also responsible. Perhaps the calamities that human civilization had experienced had been waiting for such a person to appear. Progenitor Chen had opened up a path for Lu Yin, and he hoped that the path that Lu Yin walked would help him gain enlightenment. The mother tree was huge and tall, but no matter how tall it was, it could not surpass the entire Xuanhuan universe. Lu Yin stood on the mother tree and used his mirroring technique to look at the square inch in the distance, but he could not take it into his heart. The Astral Fist manual was the fist manual of the stars, the fist manual of the heart. The bigger one's heart was, the wider the world was. This was not a technique of the heart, but of the heart spirit. It was boldness and fearlessness. Even if it was impossible for an ant to swallow the heavens, the heart spirit would still surpass the heavens. If the heart spirit could be used one day, then it would shake the world. At this moment, Lu Yin's heart spirit wished to transform into the Astral Fist manual. He wanted to take the countless civilizations within the square inch into the Astral Fist manual. Even if he was an ant, he still wanted to reign over the world. Chapter 44-51. But how could he achieve that? That devouring heaven aura in his chest was just his spirit, and without a stage to display it, he would still be an ant. A stage? He needed a stage to display his spirit and devour the heavens. Lu Yin stood there quietly as the days passed. No one disturbed him, and he forgot about his surroundings and everything else. He forgot that he wanted to cultivate the Starry Fist and the Astral Fist manual. The only thing in his mind was the universe's civilizations that he had seen through the mirroring technique and the coordinates of the civilizations that Lu Yuan and the others had drawn up. He felt his body sinking into the star chart. The coordinates of the civilizations were clearly close, but they seemed so far away to him. They were unimaginably far away, as if he would never be able to get close to them. He felt like he was being swallowed into some sort of vortex. Suddenly Lu Yin opened his eyes. No, he shouldn't be being swallowed. It wasn't him that was being swallowed, but rather the entire world, the star chart, and the various civilizations that he had seen. He looked up and spread out his arms. It was as if he was floating in a vast sea of stars. He slowly raised his arms and fiddled with the universe, causing ripples to ripple out and shake the heavens. It was as if the various civilizations were shaking as well. At that moment, the Xuanhuan universe was swaying. Countless people panicked, not understanding what was happening. Fortunately, Mr. Mu had appeared in time and asked the above heaven sect to calm everyone down. They knew that Lu Yin had done it, but they didn't know what exactly he was doing. It felt as if the Xuanhuan universe, no, the three universes, had become a small boat that was drifting on the ocean. Lu Yin's palm moved horizontally, causing ripples to spread out. He looked at them and saw that they were like shooting stars. They were very familiar, as if he had seen them on Earth before. These shooting stars continued to travel into the distance, constantly moving towards the civilizations that were just inches away. However, it was not enough. Heaven and Earth were different, and his heaven and Earth could not reach the civilizations' heaven and Earth. Even if he could destroy civilizations, he could not be their equal. He was still a living being. Since he could not be their equal, then he would make his civilization equal. Around him, Lu Yin's body rippled as he released his willpower and combined it with the Xuanhuan universe. An incomparably huge silhouette of Lu Yin appeared in the Xuanhuan universe. Many cultivators were familiar with this scene, as it had appeared when the insectoid hive had attacked. The huge silhouette seemed to have grasped the heaven's origin universe in its palm. It was a colossus that lay horizontally. Using the power of will to fuse with the universe, oneself as the civilization, and in the distance the civilization as the stars, the map of the stars as the chart, and the distance as the star fist manual. What he needed to light up was not the stars but the civilizations. Sirius Gong could not connect to civilization, but willpower could. The constellation Atlas expanded infinitely and then shrunk infinitely. Stars floated in the sky representing civilizations. It was exactly the same as the distance of the 300-year-old eternal life stage experts that Patriarch Lu Yuan and the others had drawn, with the three universes as the center. With the power of will as the link and the star chart as the guide, they formed the starry fist that only Lu Yin could cultivate. Progenitor Qin used the Xuanhuan universe as his blueprint to light up the endless stars. Therefore he felt that it was narrow. The Xuanhuan universe was only so big. Even if he lit up all the stars, he would still be in a cage. However, Lu Yin was different. His astral fist manual could be as large as his core space. The first star that Lu Yin lit up for his own civilization was the spiritualized universe. He understood spiritualized universes all too well, and with a single punch, the spiritualized universe in the astral fist manual went from dim to bright. The entire process seemed very fast to Lu Yin, but he did not know that this process lasted for a very long time. This was because what he wanted to light up was not just the spiritualized universe, but all the endless stars within it. In the end, the endless stars would replace the spiritualized universe in being lit up. It was not only the civilization stars that were lit up, but it was also the civilization stars that were lit up. Next was the Nine Heavens universe. Lu Yin punched out once again. This punch lasted for 2 years, which was much slower than lighting up the spiritualized universe because the Nine Heavens universe was much larger and more complicated. After that was the consciousness universe, which was much faster and lit up in less than half a month. After that was the spirit universe. Within the three universes, there was more than one universe that had been rebooted. These universes were all included in the Astral Fist manual and had to be lit up one by one. Lu Yin's fist intent did not affect the three universes, but anyone who faced it directly would feel a terrifying fist force that was even stronger than the Big Dipper fist intent. The Big Dipper fist intent was a dead fist intent that had lost the person who had lit it up. On the other hand, Lu Yin's starry fist was a living fist intent that was constantly boiling and expanding. It crossed an endless distance and its power continued to skyrocket. Unknowingly, 30 years had passed. During these 30 years, Lu Yin had been striking out with his fist intent, lighting up the civilizations that had once been destroyed in the three universes. When all the civilizations in the three universes had been lit up, Lu Yin struck out with his final punch. This punch traversed the three universes and hit the starry sky. It pushed the void horizontally and shattered inch by inch. Mr. Mu, the ancient god, Xianghu of the Wonder Gate, and the other eternal realms were shocked and looked into the distance. They all felt the power of this punch. Ba Rong was dumbfounded. This punch gave him the illusion that he would be beaten into a dried fish. He knew very well that he would not be able to withstand this punch. It was too terrifying. That monster. He was clearly not even an eternal realm, but he was actually able to strike out with such a terrifying and violent punch. In the Xuanhuan universe, Progenitor Qin laughed. He knew that Lu Yin had finally embarked on his own cultivation path of the Starry Fist. It was only a matter of time before the Starry Fist became extremely powerful. He would definitely be inspired by this and expand the narrow Starry Fist. At the top of the mother tree, Lu Yin stood still and looked at the starry sky calmly. This punch was currently the strongest punch he could unleash. Its power might be close to the tricolor godly power transformation. The starry fist was filled with infinite possibilities. He was not wrong. This was the power of civilization, a fist of inheritance. However, inheritance did not mean that one could not be invincible. The stronger the civilization, the stronger the individual. With the mind of square inch, one would naturally be invincible. Although it would take a long time to light up one civilization after another, there would eventually be a day when one would be invincible. In theory, the starry fist could really reach the level of invincibility. He thought of the ancestor who had destroyed a fishing civilization with a single punch. Did that ancestor also use the mind of square inch to create the starry fist manual? How long had he been cultivating? He really wanted to see the power of that punch. The starry fist belonged to the sixth stronghold. In theory, it was invincible. Then he suddenly remembered that Yu Wu had said that the fifth stronghold had an invincible technique called heart affinity. Did that mean that there were similar invincible techniques in the other strongholds? Since it was called an invincible technique, it was also theoretically invincible. The starry fist could do it, but the others could not. Otherwise, the ninth base would not have been destroyed. If someone could recreate the ninth base's invincible technique and pass it down, humans would really be able to dominate the mind of square inch. He smiled at the dark starry sky. He was thinking too much. Even the ninth base could not do it, let alone now. Human civilization should be at its lowest point in history. The upper limit was locked and enemies were everywhere. He had to stabilize himself first. Lu Yin closed his eyes and stood quietly on the mother tree. He calmed his heart and was as still as a mountain. One day, a few years later, Patriarch Lu Yuan suddenly came looking for him. An eternal realm from the divine realm civilization is coming toward us. Lu Yin opened his eyes. Let's see. Not long after, he and Patriarch Lu Yuan stood in the mind of square inch and looked into the distance. Beyond the speed of an eternal realm expert, a ball of light was rushing toward them at the speed of an ordinary eternal realm expert. It was a ball of light with dots and lines. The dots of light were constantly rotating like balls of thread. That was a creature from the divine realm civilization. At first glance, creatures from the divine realm civilization looked similar to the battleships of technological civilizations, but they were far smaller. Others did not know the characteristics of creatures from the divine realm civilization, but Lu Yin knew that they were fundamentally different from the light of technological civilizations. There are 15 gods in the divine realm civilization. This should be an existence that reached the eternal realm with absolute means. Its strength is not strong, Lu Yin said. Patriarch Lu Yuan nodded. But it's heading in our direction. That's not right. Lu Yin thought for a moment. I previously guessed that the divine realm civilization had never moved in our direction before because it was unknown. But this guy came over to prove that I guessed wrong. If it was because it was unknown, they still shouldn't be coming over now. You mean? Patriarch, other than us, who else is in this direction? Patriarch Lu Yuan blurted out, the seven treasures heavenly toad? Lu Yin nodded. The seven treasures heavenly toad clan's territory is moving, but it's moving very slowly. It's probably in this direction. In the past, I didn't think of it because the seven treasures heavenly toad clan's territory was very far from here when it was destroyed. But now that I think about it, perhaps the divine realm civilization had planned to move in this direction back then, but they happened to encounter the seven treasures heavenly toad clan, so they stopped. Now, they're suddenly here again because the seven treasures heavenly toad clan's territory has been destroyed. They should have been monitoring the seven treasures heavenly toad clan all this time. Patriarch Lu Yuan frowned. What about the unknown? Lu Yin said, this divine realm civilization definitely knows about the unknown, but they don't understand it. They're also a civilization that uses the unknown. Of course, these are all guesses. It's actually meaningless. Now we have to deal with this guy. From the looks of it, its destination is very likely where the seven treasures heavenly toad clan used to be, not us. But the seven treasures heavenly toad clan is not far from us, Patriarch Lu Yuan said. For an eternal realm expert, 50 years passed in the blink of an eye. Lu Yin looked into the distance. To them, this pseudo-eternal realm expert was very weak. In terms of strength, it was at most similar to the hexagonal monster they had encountered for the first time. But that was compared to them. If it was compared to most civilizations without an eternal realm expert, this guy would be a disaster. The reason why the divine realm civilization could become a fishing civilization was because they had forcibly brought out more than 10 pseudo-eternal realm experts with absolute means. This was a very exaggerated number. Unless they encountered a rogue like Lu Yin whose strength could crush a pseudo-eternal realm expert, even if they encountered an unknown, the unknown would not want to deal with them. Karma binding was not a joke. They were similar to the Muddy Kingdom. One was a designated karma binding, while the other was a karma binding that relied on quantity. In any case, they were both disgusting to a true Eternal Realm expert. But they were not disgusting to a rogue. End of this chapter. Chapter 44-52. Let's wait. Let me confirm the other matter first before I decide how to deal with it. Lu Yin asked Patriarch Lu Yuan to keep an eye on this fellow while he himself continued to teleport in the direction of Delight City. If one were to look at the entire square inch, it would be equivalent to Lu Yin bypassing this Eternal Life Realm expert and approaching the Divine Realm civilization. He stopped and raised his head. 6 pips appeared on the die and he tapped it. What he wanted to confirm was that Lu Cheng and the Divine Realm had started a war. As long as they started a war, the Eternal Realm expert who was close to the 3 universes could be dealt with at will. If they didn't start a war and avoided each other, then he had to think of a way. He couldn't let the human civilization become the target of the Divine Realm. Several months later, Lu Yin finally fused with the body of one of the skeletal lifeforms in Delight City. During this time, he had fused with the body of a Chu, and he had also fused with a life form from a civilization that was similar to the Chu. Just like before, he was courting death as he could not allow that life form to lead the Death Universe over. Lu City's route did not change, and it still headed in the direction of the Divine World civilization. The power of death that Lu Yin had left behind was very close to the Divine World civilization, and it ensured that Luku would encounter the Divine World civilization at the same time that the power of death disappeared. 300 years had already passed. In less than 200 years at most, they would encounter it. At that time, he wanted to see Lugu's exhausted strength, hoping that it could withstand the most powerful Divine King of the Divine World civilization. Plop, the water splashed and a familiar voice sounded, "Brother, want to form a band?" Lu Yin looked at it strangely. Was this fishbone again? How persistent was it? "You haven't formed a band yet?" "Yes, there are quite a few members, but I kicked them all out. None of them have any musical talent. What a waste of my ability." Fishbone jumped on the river. "I see that you are very talented in music, brother. Let's go together. I can take you into the castle." "How do I enter?" Lu Yin asked quietly. Fishbone said, "Of course it's to conquer the other bands with our music." Lu Yin thought that it was going to take him into the sewers again, but with the previous 2 lessons he wouldn't do that again. It was pointless and he would always be discovered. "I don't have musical talent." "You do." "I really didn't." "Believe me, you really do." "Where are the other members?" "You agreed?" "You're not worthy." "Yugu?" Lu Yin withdrew from the fusion and rolled his die again. He hoped that he would be able to fuse with Yugu's body. At the very least, Yugu had snuck into the castle more than once and might know something. This fishbone was not weak. Even someone at the level of a crossing calamity had been crushed by the sound pressure, but the fishbone remained unscathed. In that case, Lu Yin could more or less guess the brightness of the ball of light that it represented. Hopefully, it would be able to fuse into the fish's body. Time passed as he rolled the die again and again. Soon, another few decades had passed. Over the years, Lu Yin had fused with too many skeletons from Joy City. Even though there were countless skeletons, Lu Yin had only fused with those with decent strength, which allowed him to gain a deep understanding of these skeletons. He knew that outside the castle, the strongest skeleton creature was Zhou. Zhou was very likely the strongest creature under Lugu Kujin's command. Aside from Zhou and Lugudu's subordinates, there were 2 other Eternal Realm skeletons outside the castle. One of them was an Eternal Realm expert from a civilization that Lu Yin had personally witnessed being destroyed by him, while the other had existed a long time ago. Many skeletons knew that it was Ro Yuzhou who had left that Eternal Realm expert in Lu City. That was captured by Ro Yuzhou, and it was very likely the Eternal Realm expert who had escaped from the Devouring Seal civilization. This was only the situation outside the castle. Inside the castle, most of the skeletons did not understand. Lu Yin could only speculate based on their thoughts that there was more than one Eternal Realm expert. One of the members of Lugu Kujin's band was an Eternal Realm expert, and he did not seem weak. This information sent chills down Lu Yin's spine. How many Eternal Realm experts were there? Including Lugu Kujin, there were at least 5 Eternal Realm experts in Lu City. What a terrifying number. One had to know that there were 7 Abyss of the Death Universe, and Lugu Kujin was only one of them. Based on this calculation, there were more than 30 Eternal Realm experts in the Death Universe. It was not impossible. The Death Universe's combat style was destined to allow them to obtain more Eternal Realm experts. They did not kill Eternal Realm experts at all. Instead, the bone language gave them life. They did not increase their karmic restraints and could even bring Eternal Realm experts to the Death Universe. This was a rather terrifying method, even more terrifying than the Divine World civilization. Although the skeletons that were given life were far less powerful than the original ones, they were still Eternal Realm experts. They had a consistent pattern, and their strength surpassed the pseudo-Eternal Realm experts in the Divine World civilization. There were only about 10 pseudo-Eternal Realm experts in the Divine World civilization, but there were many more in the Death Universe. In particular, Ryujo had deliberately split to capture Eternal Realm experts. The number of Eternal Realm experts in the Death Universe might be much more than he thought. Lu Yin's heart was heavy. Although numbers did not necessarily mean that they were the strongest, at least they could make people hesitate. The karmic restraints were enough to give people a headache. The Death Universe, the Unknown, and the Immortal Plume were all extremely powerful. His previous attempt was correct. If he wanted to get out of this encirclement, he had to find another way. La City was quite close to the Divine World civilization. It could be said that if any Eternal Realm expert appeared in that direction, they could collide at any time. Under normal circumstances, the two civilizations would inevitably meet within 100 years. Lu Yin returned to the three universes, brought progenitor Qin, Qing Xing, and Dan Ho, and headed towards Patriarch Lu Yuan. It was time for them to practice. He could not be the only scoundrel in the human civilization. Within the space of a square inch, the light continued to move in one direction. Occasionally it would shoot out specks of light like road signs. If one looked closely, they would find that each speck of light was made up of countless smaller specks of light, and those smaller specks of light were made up of even smaller specks of light. They continued to shrink until they could no longer be seen clearly. Countless specks of light that were difficult to see with the naked eye spread out. From afar, the light did not seem large, but in reality the specks of light were constantly spreading. Right in front of them, three figures stood tall. They were progenitor Qin, Dan Ho, and Qing Xing. Qing Xing drank a mouthful of wine, his eyes drowsy. He did not really want to fight, but he had been dragged over by Patriarch Lu. Dan Ho waited calmly with a gentle expression. Progenitor Qin also looked calm, but there was a burning passion in the depths of his eyes. When he had faced that sword back then, no matter how he resisted, he had almost been obliterated. That casual sword had the power of an Eternal Realm expert. Now he also had the confidence to face an Eternal Realm expert. Although it was a very ordinary Eternal Realm expert, he had just passed bitter adversity. Qing Xing looked at progenitor Qin and asked, "You are Xianxia, right?" Progenitor Qin and Qing Xing looked at each other and nodded silently. Qing Xing said, "I have heard of your legend. I have always been curious. Is there any drawback to the 9 clones technique? For example, the 9 personalities?" Dan Ho frowned. "Qing Xing, you have crossed the line." Qing Xing did not care. "Xiaoxiang won't mind." Progenitor Qin did not mind. "Having 9 personalities is a drawback. If you don't practice it well, you will easily be devoured." Dan Ho said, "You don't have to answer him." Qing Xing smiled. "I heard that progenitor Qin has an invincible spirit, and it is true. It doesn't matter if you say it out loud. Just like me, because of the flaw in Master's dead heart state, I can't break through to the Eternal Realm. It doesn't matter." Dan Ho looked at Qing Xing. "You may be able to break through to the Eternal Realm." Qing Xing drank a mouthful of wine. "I know my own situation. Among the 3 of us, only Xiaoxiang can break through." Progenitor Qin looked at Dan Ho. "She can't break through?" He had heard of Dan Ho's name. She was the god of defense of the 9 Clouds universe and was respected by everyone. Dan Ho did not say much. "It's coming. Get ready." "Actually, it's good that I can't break through. What's the point of being bound by karma? It's more interesting to be a rogue." Qing Xing put away the wine jug. Her eyes turned cold and she rushed out. The airflow rushed into the starry sky and spread in all directions. She merged the Nirvana tree and used the chaotic ancient energy art. In front of them, the Eternal Realm from the Divine World civilization had already noticed them, but it did not care. If one did not reach the Eternal Realm, he would be an ant. It was curious about what these 3 ants were doing there. It did not think that they were waiting for it. In its mind, it could detect them, but they could not detect it in advance. However, Qing Xing's sudden attack startled it. The first airflow rushed into the sky. It did not feel anything, but when the Nirvana tree merged and the chaotic ancient energy art completely erupted, it felt a sense of crisis. This creature could make it feel a sense of crisis even though it was not in the Eternal Realm. What about the other 2? Specks of light swept toward the airflow. Boom. The starry sky expanded and tore apart. Qingxing was forced to retreat. As expected of an eternal realm expert. Pill after pill shot towards the light. Pill techniques fused time and space to forge pills. The Nirvana tree technique allowed the pill puppets to rise to a new level. Countless pills exploded, causing the light to retreat a little. It wasn't that it was suppressed, but rather that it was apprehensive. Qingxing and Danho's attack made the light uneasy. How could two creatures that could fight against an eternal realm expert suddenly appear? Could it be that they were scoundrels? Impossible. How could there be so many scoundrels? Just as it thought of this, a huge heaven and earth furnace appeared. Ancestor Chen attacked, wanting to burn the light with the furnace. However, the furnace was shattered as soon as it was formed. There was nothing it could do. This was the eternal realm. Even the most ordinary eternal realm expert was not something that ordinary cultivators could challenge. In the distance, Lu Yin and Ancestor Lu Yuan were watching. Without using the Nirvana tree and Starry Fist, Ancestor Chen's threat to the eternal realm expert was much lower than Qingxing and Danho. Are you sure Xiaoxiang is qualified to challenge the eternal realm expert? He is not you. You were only an ancestor when you first encountered the hexagonal eternal realm monster. Ancestor Lu Yuan sighed. Lu Yin said, he is qualified. It's just that he hasn't used his full strength yet. Qingxing and Danho can at most remain undefeated if they work together. It seems that they can use the Nirvana tree to increase their destructive power to the eternal realm. However, it is still not the eternal realm. How difficult was it for you to reach the level of a scoundrel? It is not easy for a scoundrel to appear, Ancestor Lu Yuan said. Lu Yin recalled the past. Yes, it was not easy for a scoundrel to appear. Qingxing was an extreme powerhouse below the eternal realm. With the help of the Nirvana tree, he could reach the level of an eternal realm expert. However, it did not mean that he could defeat an eternal realm expert. Only those who had killed an eternal realm expert could be called a scoundrel. Even if it was this fake eternal realm expert. End of chapter. Chapter 44-53. Qingxing couldn't win in a one-on-one battle, and even Dan Hong was slightly weaker than him. Whether they could win this battle depended on Progenitor Chen. Lu Yin was looking forward to Progenitor Chen's starry fist giving everyone a surprise. The battle continued as Qingxing, Dan Hong and Progenitor Chen continued to attack. The Divine Realm life form also erupted with Eternal Life Realm power. The three used the Nirvana tree's techniques to encircle and force their way in, but they were also careful. We can't go on like this. I know everyone has their own trump cards, so I'll go first. Qingxing shouted as he raised his arms and pushed against the light. Endless airflow filled the sky like a wave that swept through the stars, causing space to shake and tremble. The light scattered and turned into a cone that shot towards Qingxing. Be careful, Dan Hong warned. They had just dealt with the Eternal Life Realm life form, and their attacks had all come from those light spots. They couldn't be seen or touched, but they could fuse with the Eternal Life Realm. Each light spot was like a strengthened Eternal Life Realm life form, and it brought them a terrifying sense of danger. The light spots entered the airflow and floated about, ready to scatter at any moment. However, more light spots were added, causing the cone to grow larger and closer to Qingxing. There was no way Qingxing would be able to withstand this attack. As the cone approached, Qingxing felt as if heaven and earth no longer existed in his eyes. Only the airflow whizzed past, bringing out the light and plunging him into darkness. Endless airflow formed a spiral that revolved around him. He raised his hand and struck out. Dan Hong watched intently. Hand strike, kick, sweep, arm stab, waist strike, back strike, heavy head strike, black eye. This is the chaotic 8 styles. In the past, Qingxing had only been able to use the chaotic 6 styles. Now, with the help of the Nirvana tree, he was able to use the chaotic 8 styles. The chaotic 8 styles was a consummate technique that could allow one to enter the chaotic era and travel between the past and the present. Translator, Transin editor, Transin 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 in the distance. Lu Yin raised his brows. He had exchanged blows with Qingxing the first time they had met, and Qingxing's ancient chaos technique had shocked the 9 heavens. After that, he had used the ancient chaos 8 styles to forcefully clash with Tianho's physical body, forcing Tianho to retreat. Tianho was the strongest of the 4 insect lords, and even Lu Yin had found it difficult to defeat him. And that was only the chaotic ancient 6 stances. At this moment, the chaotic ancient 8 stances were fully displayed. That finger directly broke the cone, and it was now Qingxing's turn to chase after the light. His finger stirred up the airflow and everything was in chaos. The gray time was flowing and it was constantly approaching the light. The beam of light from the god world retreated, staring at the finger. It was incredibly powerful. Scoundrel, that's right, this person has the strength of a scoundrel. Otherwise, how could he unleash such an attack? However, this finger alone wasn't enough to defeat it. Countless specks of light merged around the light, constantly condensing and expanding. It was as if the light itself was constantly expanding, and from a distance, it looked like a light vortex. Qingxing attacked, unleashing a vortex of airflow. The peak attack of the ancient Chaos 8 stances met the light vortex. This finger entered the light, causing the airflow to tremble. Step by step, Qingxing walked towards the light, wanting to get closer. However, he was slowly diverted by the vortex and he was forced to move along with it. Qingxing's face paled and he shouted, "This isn't an ordinary vortex, it's that light. It's a vortex of eternal matter, and it's forcefully changing my direction with so much eternal matter." He was saying this for Dan Hong and Progenitor Qin to hear. This was his strongest attack, but it couldn't reach the light. His body kept shifting and he got closer and closer to the light, but his angle kept changing. Suddenly, the light above Qingxing's head condensed into the shape of a cone, and it fell from above, wanting to pierce through him. At that moment, Dan Hong attacked. "Actually, I don't have any trump cards. I just have a lot of pills, so I'll blast away as much as I can." Boom, boom, boom. Pills kept exploding. Although Dan Hong looked gentle and quiet, her fighting style left Lu Yuan speechless. Why did it feel like she was more violent than anyone else? Lu Yin was disappointed. Dan Hong's talent in fighting was far inferior to Qingxing's, let alone Progenitor Qin. However, she wasn't good at fighting, and reaching her current level of cultivation was already her peak. He looked at Progenitor Qin. It was time to make a move. Countless pills bombarded the light, giving Qingxing a chance to escape the vortex. He knew when to stop. He stepped back and smiled bitterly. "I thought it was too simple. I thought that Master Lu could kill Eternal Realm experts like child's play. It wasn't that difficult to be a scoundrel. Only when I fought with Eternal Realm experts did I realize how dangerous it was." "That's not what you said before," Dan Hong glanced at him and said. Qingxing shrugged, "You're too arrogant. We can't win. Let's see what happens next." Dan Hong didn't care about winning or losing, but she didn't stop bombarding. Suddenly, a dazzling light enveloped the surroundings in the blink of an eye, including Qingxing, Dan Hong and even Progenitor Qin. The light continued to spread. At the same time, the pills that Dan Hong had thrown out all stopped, and the entire sky was filled with light spots. In the distance, Progenitor Lu Yuan was astonished. "This is an invisible world?" Lu Yin was speechless. "This can be seen. So it's not an invisible world formed by the laws of the universe?" "No, it's just this creature's own strength. Even if it doesn't use the laws of the universe, the creature's own characteristics and the eternal matter can still reach this step. This is why this civilization is called a fishing civilization." "Then how do we break through? Save someone?" Lu Yin said, "Not yet. At the very least, let Progenitor Qin unleash that punch." The light vortex grew bigger and bigger, and the creature from the Divine Realm civilization had yet to use the laws of the universe. Progenitor Qin moved, releasing the serious art. Countless stars rotated as he stared at the light and punched out. In an instant, countless stars lit up, and the universe collapsed under this punch. The serious art and the astral fist manual overlapped, and it was as if a starry sky had descended, accompanied by the power of the punch, and fiercely attacked the light. Qingxing and Dan Ho's expressions changed drastically. This punch? The light also faced Progenitor Qin for the first time. Before this, Progenitor Qin's attack was less threatening than Qingxing and Dan Ho's, so it did not care. Now, it only had eyes for Progenitor Qin in this punch. This punch distorted the light vortex and forcefully entered it. With the activation of the serious art, it forcefully stopped the light vortex from rotating. The terrifying fist intent was unstoppable. Even if the light used the laws of the universe, outsiders could not see what the laws were before it was broken by Progenitor Qin's punch. The sixth barrier, the Taya Starry Fist. Progenitor Qin had comprehended his own starry fist. He punched the light and penetrated it. Behind the light, a dark and deep mark was left in the starry sky. In an instant, the light that covered the starry sky scattered. The light flickered, and the light that was constantly rotating in his body trembled, trying to repair the hole in his body. Qing Xing and Dan Ho looked at Progenitor Qin in shock. Was this the second Lu Master? From what they knew, only Lu Yin could fight against those below the immortal realm with his primordial realm cultivation. When he reached the bitter adversity stage, he could kill ordinary immortal realm experts and become a rogue. Now, Progenitor Qin's punch had suppressed that immortal realm expert. It could be said that he was definitely at the level of a rogue. And this person was only at the bitter adversity stage. They were at the peak of the immortal realm, and there was a huge gap between their realms. The human civilization had a second rogue. In the distance, Progenitor Lu Yuan sighed and smiled bitterly. I didn't expect to be surpassed by a junior. Lu Yin smiled. Progenitor, I'm also a junior. That's right, ha. Progenitor Lu Yuan was happy. If Progenitor Qin could surpass them, it meant that the human civilization's strength was constantly increasing. He did not feel bad because his generation was destined to embark on the path to immortality. The ancient gods were the first to take the path, but they would not be the last. Even if not all of them reached the immortal realm, at least a few would succeed. As for himself, teleportation was enough. Even if Progenitor Qin's punch surpassed his, as long as he had teleportation, it was hard to say who would win. Lu Yin disappeared and reappeared not far from Progenitor Qin. He smiled. Congratulations, Progenitor Qin, for stepping into the rogue level. Sirius retracted around Progenitor Qin's body, and he looked at Lu Yin. There's still a lot of room for improvement. Lu Yin nodded. Let's verify it later. This is a true path to invincibility. Okay. Progenitor Qin was excited. He finally saw the hope of snatching Xiaoyu back. He also knew that it was stupid of him to keep chasing after Xiaoyu. Even if he found her, it was not a matter of a sword. But he could not give up. Now, with the Starry Fist, a fist technique with unlimited possibilities, he would walk this path of invincibility. He would not be as helpless as before. He was Progenitor Qin, the strongest of his generation in the Tianyuan universe's Genesis space. He was one of the 9 mountains and 8 seas. No matter how the world changed, he would reach that height again. Within the light, the body that had been pierced by the Starry Fist had been repaired. A voice rang out. You have angered this god. I will make you beg for death. Lu Yin's lips curled up. The training is over. Then let's go back. With that, he disappeared. The light was shocked. Where did this creature go? It had been staring at Progenitor Qin while its body was being repaired. Although Lu Yin had appeared suddenly, as long as he was not an eternal life realm, he could be dealt with. It had been thinking about how to deal with Progenitor Qin's punch. But it had not expected that this new creature would disappear. Suddenly, Lu Yin appeared in front of it and raised his hand. The light was shocked. It did not have time to think about how Lu Yin had suddenly appeared. Countless light dots fused and collided. Lu Yin flicked his finger. It was very light, as if he was flicking cotton, but it pierced through the light's body again. The light was stunned. What was going on? Qing Xing, Dan Hong, and Progenitor Qin were all shocked. In the past, they had not thought much of Lu Yin when he killed eternal life realms. But now that they had personally fought him, they realized how difficult it was to deal with an eternal life realm expert. They were on a different level. Even if they had used various methods to reach that level, they could only barely do so. Lu Yin, on the other hand, had walked very far on that level. Chapter 44-54. This light made them helpless even when they joined forces, but it was so powerless in front of Lu Yin that they couldn't even make a move. Lu Yin grabbed the light spot in the light and teleported away. Lu Yuan appeared. Let's go, I'll bring you back. The creatures of the Divine Realm civilization looked like a ball of light on the surface, moving with light spots. In fact, their essence was a light spot. Every creature of the Divine Realm civilization was a light spot. It was so small that even the progenitor couldn't see it clearly. When Lu Yin first learned about the Divine Realm civilization, he didn't expect that a small light spot would grow into a fishing civilization. The conclusion given by the 8 colors was that all living things, regardless of size or shape, had their own laws of development because all life forms existed under the law of the square inch distance. Whether it was humans, Xianling, or these light spots, they all cultivated under the law of inches. Then, it was possible to become a fishing civilization, and it had nothing to do with the strength of their own form. It could be said that it was not easy for the Divine Realm civilization to develop into a fishing civilization. The light spot that Lu Yin grabbed was the essence of this eternal life. It kept trying to break through Lu Yin's palm and used the law of the universe to do so, but it was useless. In front of Lu Yin, let alone a pseudo-eternal realm, Even a real eternal realm would be helpless unless they combined two laws of the universe or broke through to the peak of one law of the universe. No need to struggle. Lu Yin returned to the back mountain of the above heaven sect and opened his hand. The light spot rushed out and tried to escape, but it was hit by Lu Yin's palm, causing the light spot to be faintly discernible. It was obviously severely injured. Don't fight, respected powerhouse, don't fight. The light spot made a sound and begged for mercy. Long Shi came and made tea for Lu Yin, looking at the light spot curiously. Lu Yin said lightly, "Which god of the divine realm civilization are you?" Long Shi was surprised. Divine realm? This was really arrogant. Looking at the law of inches, who dared to call themselves a god? Even if they didn't know, Xianling wouldn't dare. The light spot vibrated. Fu Shen. I admire you guys. You're just a pseudo-eternal realm, but you dare to call yourself a god. Lu Yin said. How do you know us? Is it difficult? I know you guys better than you. Who are you? Lu Yin casually slapped it again, causing it to become even more indistinct. He then took out the appointed general platform hell and tossed it in. He would increase his karma first before anything else. Although he was a pseudo-immortal level expert, he had lived for many years. He should increase as much as he could. Looking at the general appointment platform, hell floated in midair and slowly rotated. Long Shi blinked. Isn't it a bit bullying? Lu Yin took a sip of tea. The strongest of this civilization is enough to completely destroy our three universes. Long Shi blinked again. Don't judge a book by its cover. After a period of time, the speck of light reappeared. Lu Yin could not see how the hell of General Point platform had affected it. It was just a speck of light. This life form was completely different from humans and it was difficult to understand. The most he could do was try his best to understand the light spot's emotions from its words. There didn't seem to be any special emotional fluctuations. Lu Yin asked a lot of questions and the dot answered honestly. Soon, Lu Yin learned that the Eternal Realm civilization 200 years away from the three universes was controlled by a god called Flowing Night, and the reason this bestowed god was heading this way was because of this god. Flowing Night God? Lu Yin knew that it was one of the few true eternal beings in the Divine Realm civilization, and its status was higher than this pseudo-immortal level expert. Why did it ask you to come this way? Lu Yin asked. The bestowed god said, I don't know. You don't know? Lu Yin was doubtful. The bestowed god hurriedly said, I really don't know, it just asked me to come in this direction and not change direction. Go 300 years, return 300 years. Lu Yin frowned. 300 years was bound to pass through the three universes. One universe was very small, and as long as an Eternal Realm expert did not check the surroundings they might not notice it. However, the three universes were very large and together they could be seen even if they did not cross. You didn't come here because of the 7 treasures Heavenly Toad? We know about the 7 treasures Heavenly Toad, but not because of them. Lu Yin used karma to penetrate the speck of light. In the end he still had to verify it with karma. He used karma to check for more than half a month, but he could not understand the truth from the bestowed god's karma. After all, it was a different civilization. The communication between the specks of light appeared in the past karma, but Lu Yin could not understand it. Why didn't you develop in this direction before? Lu Yin asked. The bestowed god said, because of the unknown. Lu Yin's eyes narrowed. As expected, it was related to the unknown. It's also because of the 7 treasures Heavenly Toad. The bestowed god continued, a long time ago, we encountered the 7 treasures Heavenly Toad. It's not to be trifled with, so we gave up on this direction. Lu Yin understood. Then how much do you know about the unknown? The bestowed god replied, I don't know, I only know that it's our civilization's greatest enemy. However, Lord Flowing Night definitely knows about it, as there are rumors in the civilization that Lord Flowing Night is related to the unknown. Lu Yin's eyes widened. That Flowing Night is related to the unknown. That's what everyone says, but no one can prove it. Lu Yin pondered. If that was the case, he could vaguely guess why the bestowed god had come here. It was because of the unknown. This was a method of the unknown that used a civilization to destroy it. The unknown clearly protected the human civilization for 2,000 years, and there was only one person who could do such a thing, the Master of Balance. The answer was clear. The Master of Balance was the unknown that used the divine civilization. Back then, he had severed the meteor world with a single slash and severely injured the startled Gate Lord. He had broken the rules of the unknown, but no one had been able to catch him. Now, he was using the divine civilization to attack the human civilization, and his goal was to weaken the human civilization. After all, although they had not come into contact with the immortal civilization, the addition of sunken immortality, the ancient gods' breakthrough, and the addition of the stone golems and Barong were all increasing the strength of the three universes. If he was not wrong, then the Master of Balance wanted to use the divine civilization to beat down the human civilization. He did not really want to use the divine civilization to destroy them because the protection period of the unknown was still up. This move was the same as the one that had severed the meteor world. Luin took a deep breath. Although it was just a guess, he was almost certain that this was the case. He was glad that he had not used the reward of the unknown to search for traces of the powerful human civilization. Otherwise, the divine civilization would have attacked long ago and would not have waited until now. The Master of Balance's methods could be very slow or very fierce. Then, was the bestowed god's arrival a warning from the Master of Balance? He had guessed that Luin would understand and was clearly trying to stop him. If he strengthened the three universes, what awaited him would not just be an bestowed god, but an entire divine civilization. The bestowed god did not know what Luin was thinking. He really did not understand how such a powerful civilization could appear in this direction other than the seven treasures heavenly toad. Not to mention those experts with similar strength, this creature was unfathomable to him. It was very powerful. Why did Lord Nightflow ask him to come? Was it because of this civilization? Luin sat there in deep thought and did not move. He sat there for 3 days. During this time long she did not come. Luin could not disturb her at this time. 3 days later, Luin looked up at the Karma Heavenly Tao and raised his hand. Karma descended, connecting heaven and earth, and finally turned into a path sword that flew towards the bestowed god. The bestowed god could not see Karma at all, but he instinctively wanted to avoid it. But he could not avoid it. The path sword entered his body. Luin grabbed him and teleported again and again. Soon he arrived at the place where the bestowed god and progenitor Qin had fought. Go back. The bestowed god was uneasy. You want me to go back? Luin smiled. You want to stay? The bestowed god turned and fled in the direction he came from. Luin watched him leave. This was a conversation between him and the Master of Balance. He had received the Master of Balance's warning. Letting the bestowed god go was telling the Master of Balance that this matter would not escalate. He also hoped that the Master of Balance would not attract the Divine Realm civilization. If the bestowed god died in his hands, the Divine Realm civilization would know. At first, Luin thought that if Lucidity and the Divine Realm civilization went to war, they could share the pressure of the human civilization. Even if they killed the bestowed god, the Divine Realm civilization would not have time to worry. But now he knew that as long as the Master of Balance was willing, even if Lucidity and the Divine Realm civilization went to war, they could still attract strong enemies. Even if it was not the Divine Realm civilization, it could be others. The Master of Balance almost killed Tell Heaven. The human civilization was too far away. The current situation with the Divine Realm civilization was divided into 2 parts. The first part was Lu Yin's plan to instigate the Death Universe's Lucidity to war with the Divine Realm civilization to reduce the pressure on the human civilization. The second part was the Master of Balance's plan to warn Luin with the bestowed god. Luin had experienced both parts, but the Master of Balance had not. He had his methods of warning, and Luin also had his own plans in the dark. It was just that he could not act rashly and alert the enemy. Luin let out a deep breath. If not for Jiolei, they would not have been so suppressed. He could have developed unscrupulously and had his own methods of balancing all sides until the human civilization reached the peak. It was just like the game with the Eternals during the Xuanhuan universe's era. Unfortunately, Jiolei made the human civilization too high profile, and everything he did was limited. He could only find another way. No matter how powerful the Master of Balance was, he was not a true god. Humans would always be able to walk out of this. But why did the Master of Balance stay in the Tianyuan universe? When Jiolei had killed Chiu-Su in the Nine Firmaments universe, he had not told the unknown. After releasing the bestowed god, Luin returned to the Tianyuan universe and continued to cultivate the Starry Fist with Progenitor Chen in the Mirage domain. Progenitor Chen's Starry Fist was narrow, but Lu Yin's Starry Fist was unimaginably wide. When Progenitor Chen learned that Luin had used civilization as the stars, he was shocked. He had not expected Luin to be so ambitious. I only remembered when I saw Patriarch Shan use the Star-Toad star-seizing hand. The one who used civilization as the stars was not me, but Patriarch Shan, Luin said. Progenitor Chen sighed. This is the scope of one's vision. A person's entire life of cultivation is not as important as just one look. This is the importance of a civilization's legacy, Lu Yin said, and the two continued to cultivate the starry fist in the mirage domain. Chapter 44-55. Lu Yin's starry fist had helped progenitor Qin expand his thinking, and he wanted to expand his starry fist. However, the mirage could not be completely cultivated. Battles would cause the mirage to tremble, and they were worried about triggering the river of time. Thus they spent most of their time cultivating outside. Just like that, more than 100 years passed. Lu Yin appeared in one of the civilizations outside the three universes. He wanted to light up this civilization as a star to strengthen his starry fist. The strength of the starry fist lay in the breadth of the astral fist manual and the number of fist intents. To light up those stars, one had to continuously comprehend fist intents. Fist intents came from oneself, from the breath in one's chest, and from the comprehension of the astral fist manual. Similarly, the difficulty of the starry fist lay in the fist intents, as there were too many of them. The wider the astral fist manual was, the more fist intents there were, but comprehending fist intents was not that easy. Lu Yin walked through the civilization and looked at the strange creatures of this civilization. He looked at the stars and tried to understand the civilization and light up the stars. This was the path that he wanted to take. At the same time, this path would also allow him to build a high wall of his heart. Every civilization had its own characteristics. For example, the civilization that he was in now had no lies. It was as if there were no lies in these creatures. It could also be said that lies could not be born in this civilization. There were no lies and many of them were gone, but there were also many more. The sincerity of every creature allowed this civilization to develop in a healthy direction. Any creature that had thoughts that were unfavorable to their own civilization would not be able to hide it. However, this civilization's development was extremely slow. Without lies there would be no scheming, no creation, and a lot more. Lu Yin walked under the stars and experienced a world without lies. In the end he realized that he was not used to this world. Next. The star chart that progenitor Lu Yuan and the others had drawn included many civilizations. It seemed like it was only a few hundred years away from the eternal realm, but if one was not an eternal realm, it would be impossible to travel from one civilization to another. The spiritualized universe and the Xuanhuan universe were very close to each other, and even a bitter adversity powerhouse would need a long time to cross. This was a distance that even an eternal realm expert would need to spend 100 years or more to cross. Even if there were very few civilizations within the star chart, there were still many civilizations within this range. Lu Yin walked from civilization to civilization at a fast pace. He constantly lit up his astral fist manual and also increased the range of his star chart. It could be said that the future of the starry sky fist was promising. In the continent of the 9 clouds in Yihai in the Red Leaves Forest, Hong'er was seated on a stone bench. She slowly raised her hand. The red leaves had changed. She turned her head and looked in a certain direction. That was where Chu Songyun was in seclusion. Chu Songyun had come to the 3 universes to travel around. In the end, after becoming Lu Yin's disciple, he had chosen this place as his training ground. Back then he had obtained Qinglian Yu's approval. The first time he had come here, it was to see Hong'er. Hong'er was a descendant of Jiao Wen's disciple from the Pan civilization. That Pan civilization had been abandoned by the Green Lotus ruler, and she had remained here as a chess piece. In the end she was used as a bait to plot against Red Hero. It could be said that Hong'er did not seem to be of much use, but she was actually indispensable. Chu Songyun wanted to meet her because she acknowledged his identity as a red specter under the stars, but she did not completely belong to the red specter under the stars. Moreover, this woman had dared to question Yong Sheng at the startling Sparrow Terrace. Not everyone had this kind of courage. After coming here, Chu Songyun realized that this place was especially suitable for him to cultivate. The battle skill that he cultivated was called Solar Pine Withered Leaf Domain. This entire Red Leaves forest was filled with withered leaves, and it was located in the Karma Sea. It was the most ideal place to cultivate. After obtaining Qinglian Yu and Lu Yin's approval, he had stayed here. Of course, he had also obtained Hong'er's approval. Hong'er was also very curious about Chu Songyun's cultivation method. She had heard that he cultivated the true emotionless Tao. The past few hundred years had been very peaceful, but recently the Red Leaves forest seemed to have changed. Every withered leaf was falling at a slower speed. It had nothing to do with the wind or gravity. It was as if the withered leaves were unwilling to leave the tree. Hong'er took a withered leaf and immediately felt a myriad of emotions. Her eyes turned red, and she looked at Chu Songyun's training ground again. She knew that the changes here were related to this person. He had affected the withered leaves, the Red Leaves forest, and even herself. The sword hummed softly and a red light swept across the world. Looked at the red light that flashed in front of her and seemed to see her own reflection in it. The red light flashed and the sword's edge flashed. Xuanhuan had come out of seclusion at some point. He grabbed the sword's hilt and looked at it in a daze. Outside Yihai, figures appeared one after another. They were Shueta Xiangyu, Shuemen Xiangyu and the others. There was also a fish Barong. When the red light flashed in front of its eyes, it was almost scared to death. At that moment, it felt as if it was facing a terrifying monster. Xuanhuan faced everyone and bowed slowly. I'm trying to break through to immortality. Seniors, please help to limit the aftermath and not affect the innocent. Shueta Xiangyu's eyes lit up. Just do it. Leave the rest to us. Thank you, senior. Xuanhuan retracted his gaze and looked at the sword in his hand. More than 300 years ago, his master had personally handed this sword to him. Since the moment he received this sword, he knew that he was getting closer to breaking through to immortality. He was getting closer. Originally, he was an ultimate powerhouse below immortality. He had fought with He Xiao before and was only one step away from immortality. This step was impossible for Underworld Hong Yi in the past, but it was different now. He was walking the true emotionless Tao, and within this sword, there was also base master Hong Shuang's emotionless Tao. It was time to try to break through to immortality. Self-breakthrough to immortality was different from stepping into immortality with the help of the universe's reboot. With the help of the universe's reboot, one had to constantly repeat the process of origin and decay with immortal matter to give birth to life energy. As one's realm transformed, the life energy would grow and multiply endlessly. As for self-breakthrough, everyone was different. It depended on each person's understanding of immortality and the degree of self-cultivation. Mr. Mu broke through by sitting in the cauldron and sinking into the river of time for many years before finally taking that step. But in the end he still had to return to the ninth stronghold. When Xuanhuan broke through at this moment, Jingmen Xiangyu thought of this and hurriedly reminded him, if you want to enter immortality, shouldn't you return to the universe where you were born? Xuanhuan slowly let go of the sword hilt. With it here there's no need. After saying that, the surroundings were instantly filled with withered leaves. Some came from the red leaves forest, but most of them were formed by the emotionless Tao. The withered leaves continued to spread toward the entire Nine Heavens universe. The withered leaves did not need to be stopped as they would not cause any damage to civilization. Xuanhuan sat cross-legged as the withered leaves scattered all over the world. In front of him, the red sword floated, and an umbrella opened behind him. It was not Jiuwen's umbrella but his own. The emotionless Tao red umbrella used the emotionless Tao as its frame. As the red umbrella closed, the withered leaves between heaven and earth stopped. Countless people looked at the floating withered leaves in confusion. Someone reached out and touched it. In an instant, their gaze shifted to the red umbrella. They saw a different world and Xuanhuan's gaze shifted to that person. He felt that person's joys and sorrows. There were emotions in the world, but walking the emotionless Tao was not really emotionless. The point was not emotionless but the opposite of emotions. What was the difference between the emotionless Tao of the second stronghold and the emotionless Tao of the red dress under the stars? Why was one right? Why was one wrong? In the past, Xuanhuan did not know why his emotionless Tao was right. He was only determined to walk on this path. Step by step he followed his heart. His closed heart and innate characteristics made his emotionless Tao right. In fact, this so-called right was not the emotionless Tao itself, but his innate talent. As long as he did not pursue true emotionless Tao, it was right. The red clothes under the stars had the emotionless Tao, but Hong Shuang was the most emotionless. The emotionless Tao was actually very simple. It was so simple that no one would believe it. This was the second stronghold's return to simplicity. Emotionlessness was just a term. Emotionlessness was still a type of emotion. In the past, Xuanhuan did not understand. But now he did. He felt Hong Shuang's emotionless Tao in the sword, and it completely refreshed his understanding. He also saw his own essence. So this was the emotionless Tao. Countless people touched the withered leaves. He saw the gazes of countless people and felt their hearts at this moment. Some were happy, some were sad. All kinds of emotions filled their hearts. He saw clearly that there was love and he also saw clearly that there was no love. One umbrella frame connected to the red umbrella. 8 umbrella frames and the 8th was the emotionless Tao. In the legends of the red clothes under the stars, 70% of the emotionless Tao was eternal life. However, there were people with extraordinary talent who could comprehend the 7th part of the emotionless Tao while not in the eternal realm. Such people were rare, but they existed. Red Hero was one of them. Xuanhuan was also one of them. Back then, he had revealed the seventh part of the umbrella frame in his battle with Xiao. However, no one had ever held up the eighth part of the umbrella frame without being in the eternal realm. Now Xuanhuan had done it. He had not broken through to the eternal realm, but he had connected the eighth part of the umbrella frame, surpassing Red Hero. It was rare. If it were not for the unknown history of the second barrier, Xuanhuan might be recognized as the only person in the history of the emotionless Tao who had connected 8 umbrella frames while not in the eternal realm. When the eighth part of the umbrella frame was connected, alarmed Gate Xiangyu and the others were shocked. They knew very well that even if Xuanhuan had not broken through to the eternal realm, he must be at the level of a rogue at this moment. He was definitely a rogue who could kill ordinary eternal realm experts. Bai Yu looked at Xuanhuan and her eyes were full of shock. 8 umbrella frames not in the eternal realm. Could this person reach the level of xuanhuan? Inside the red umbrella, Xuanhuan's eyes widened, and his aura suddenly rose. Everyone felt the impact of the emotionless Tao. It was different from the coldness that they imagined. The emotionless Tao could also give people warmth. Vitality surged out, and Xuanhuan officially stepped into the eternal realm. He grabbed the sword hilt, and an indescribable vast force instantly shrouded the 3 universes. This force made everyone in awe. It was a terrifying force that they had never felt before. Mr. Mu's eyes narrowed. Was this the power of old Ancestor Shan? He had felt the power of old Ancestor Shan before. It was in accordance with the laws of the 3 universes and was invincible. Now he felt a similar power again. That sword belonged to xuanhuan. This was xuanhuan's emotionless Tao. Therefore, Xuanhuan did not need to go to xuanhuan's universe under the stars. xuanhuan's emotionless Tao was the most authentic emotionless Tao. That sword could make up for everything. Chapter 4456. In the Tianyuan universe, the Forgotten Ruins God and Wang Xiaoyu looked up at the starry sky. They also felt this power. It was unfathomable, and they could not imagine what kind of existence could have such power. Qinggo's ears drooped, and it did not dare to raise its head. It was too terrifying. A voice came from Qinggo's back. How many years has it been since I last felt this power? Are you okay? It's time for us to meet. After speaking, he raised his hand, and his jade-like palm casually tapped the air. A sword intent appeared in the air and shot towards the 9th heaven universe. The sword intent descended from the 9th heaven and slashed towards Xuanhuan. It came quickly, but the speed of the slash was not fast. Xiangyu and the others saw it and were shocked. They hurriedly attacked. The blood tower was pierced, and the gray time was torn apart by the sword intent. Xiangyu, Qinjian, Mr. Mu and the others all attacked together, but no one could stop this sword. Just a single sword intent kept approaching Xuanhuan, wanting to kill him. Helpless, Mr. Mu pushed his fortified turbid treasure in front of Xuanhuan. The sword intent did not collide and it disappeared immediately. Then it appeared behind the fortified turbid treasure and slashed towards Xuanhuan. At this moment, no power could stop it. Xuanhuan looked at the approaching sword intent. Master, even if I don't break through, I will lure this envoy of balance out for you. After speaking, he suddenly grabbed the sword hilt and slashed. The sword swept past, but it did not touch anything. The sword intent passed through the sword and appeared in front of Xuanhuan. Xuanhuan was stunned. How could this be? In the 3 universes, no power could stop that sword intent. At this moment, the sword intent became the center of the universe, the center of everyone's attention. Just as the sword intent was about to kill Xuanhuan, an umbrella frame blocked it and a soft bang sounded. Xuanhuan looked at the umbrella frame in front of him. This was not his red umbrella, nor was it Senior Jiaowen's red umbrella. What was this? Looking up along the umbrella frame, the river of time flowed past in the void. A red umbrella appeared and gradually opened up, repelling the sword intent. You're finally out. Do you know how long I've been waiting for this moment? The gentle voice on Qinggo's back attacked again, and the sword intent was about to slash out. Back in Nina Firmament's universe, Lu Yin teleported over and brought Grandmaster Qingqiao with him. He shouted, "Portal." Grandmaster Qingqiao opened the portal without hesitation, which led to the unknown. Lu Yin stared at the Tianyuan cosmos. Keeper of balance, you've broken the rules time and time again. Do you know that the rules are greater than the heavens? How are you going to explain this? The person on Qinggo's back was vexed. Your reaction is really fast. He then disappeared. At this moment, the god of forgetfulness and Wang Xiaoyu finally dared to look. There was no one on the heavenly hound's back. That person had left. The 3 universes were peaceful. 9 Clouds universe. Lu Yin stared at the Tianyuan universe. Would he make a move? It shouldn't be. Master? Chu Songyin shouted. Lu Yin looked at him and smiled. Break through. No one will be able to stop you. Chu Songyun's eyes burned with passion. Yes. After he finished speaking, he sat down cross-legged, and vitality surged from his body. Lu Yin looked at the red umbrella above his head. This was the second stronghold's guardian artifact, Hong Shuang's weapon. Everyone was looking at the red umbrella. The red umbrella had emerged from the river of time. More accurately, it had come from the mirage domain. It had to be the forbidden area that had been searched many times, but there was nothing there. Where had the red umbrella been hidden? Lu Yin's eyes flashed. He was actually waiting, hoping that Hong Shuang would appear. After all, her guardian artifact had appeared. But after waiting for a while, nothing happened. He could only teleport away. During the battle of the 9th civilization, Hong Shuang and Emperor Qiu had fought at the pinnacle. She had been betrayed by Red Hero, and they had both been severely injured. Emperor Qiu had died in battle, and Hong Shuang had fled into the forbidden area of the Mirage domain. She had also taken away her guardian artifact. The scene of the woman in red entering the forbidden area kept replaying in Lu Yin's mind. That was Hong Shuang. Hong Shuang was definitely not dead, and she should be in the Mirage domain. The Keeper of Balance had stopped attacking. Perhaps he had gone to the forbidden area of the Mirage domain. Since the red umbrella had emerged from the Mirage domain, he must have seen it. Although Lu Yin was not sure, he had to go to the forbidden area just in case. He was taking a risk. If he encountered the Keeper of Balance, it would be extremely dangerous. But he had no other choice. If Hong Shuang was in the Mirage domain and the Keeper of Balance attacked, the situation would be unpredictable. Lu Yin had experienced the confrontation between Hongyan Mavis and Fengbua. If not for his appearance, Hongyan Mavis would still be trapped. Lu Yin arrived in the Mirage domain and looked at the forbidden area, but there was nothing there. He looked at the river of time and saw Zhao Ran. Zhao Ran also looked at him. What happened? Lu Yin asked. Zhao Ran said, an umbrella emerged from the forbidden area. What else? Nothing else. Nothing else? Lu Yin frowned. Did anyone or a creature go to the forbidden area? Zhao Ran shook her head. No. Lu Yin walked towards the forbidden area and entered. He came out again, but there was nothing there. It was still empty inside. Strange. Hong Shuang was not here. Did the Keeper of Balance not come? Had he guessed wrong? Then why had the red umbrella emerged from the forbidden area? Lu Yin teleported away from the Mirage domain and arrived at Nina Firmament's universe. At this moment, the time in the outside world had not changed. Chu Songyun's body was surging with vitality, and his red umbrella had propped up another umbrella frame. He had reached 90% ruthlessness, and he had officially stepped into the eternal realm. All that was left was to comprehend the laws of the universe. Lu Yin heaved a sigh of relief. Fortunately, Patriarch Lu Yuan had called him back in time. Otherwise, Chu Songyun would have been in danger. When Patriarch Lu Yuan had found him and told him that Chu Songyun was about to break through to the eternal realm, Lu Yin knew that things were not good. The Keeper of Balance would not allow the human civilization to become stronger. Thus, he had immediately brought Master Grass with him and threatened him with the unknown door. Actually, it was already too late. If not for the turbid red umbrella, Chu Songyun would have been dead. The increase in the human civilization's strength had caused the Keeper of Balance to act more frequently. It was very troublesome. Hong Shuang had not appeared either. Where was she? In the Tianyuan universe, Tiango's body sank. The Forgotten Ruins god and Wang Xiaoyu bowed respectfully. If she isn't here, then I've really walked a path of no return. All these years of waiting have lost its meaning. Then let everything disappear. After speaking, a door appeared in front of him and a voice sounded. 8 colors. You've broken the rules. 8 colors voice sounded. I'm both inside and outside of your civilization. What rules are there? Besides, I didn't do anything to that person. Unknown. The rules are greater than the heavens and you cannot be an exception. You can do it once and twice but not thrice. Alright, but the human civilization's strength is constantly increasing, and it's getting out of control. Humans are a very strange civilization. They live like ants but they have unlimited possibilities. Some people are entrenched in their own world while others have the universe in their hearts. It's limitless. Don't let a second 9th base appear. Impossible. 8 colors was certain. Don't force us to go to war during the protection period for the human civilization. Understood. Time passed day by day. On this day, Chu Songyun's aura gradually calmed down. The endless withered leaves turned to dust. The disappearance of this natural phenomenon meant that Chu Songyun had officially stepped into the eternal realm. The human civilization had gained another eternal being. The Blood Tower Lord laughed. Everyone was happy. First it was the ancient god and now it was Chu Songyun. The breakthroughs of these people made them feel as if they were witnessing the arrival of civilization's glory. At this moment, even if the Keeper of Balance had locked down the upper limit of the human civilization, it was temporarily forgotten. Ba Rong's head was dizzy. How many eternal beings did this civilization have? Why were there so many? 1, 2, 3. In today's human civilization, excluding the stone monster and Ba Rong, there were 10 true eternal beings. In addition to the 2 rascals, Lu Yin and progenitor Qin, there were 12. There were 14 eternal beings and among them there was even a treasure. In terms of strength, other than the lack of absolute powerhouses, the human civilization was actually a fishing civilization. It was a pity that the Blue Lotus Lord had sealed the Red Lotus tomb. Otherwise there would be another eternal being. With so many eternal beings, it was no wonder that Ba Rong was stunned. Chu Songyun faced Lu Yin and bowed deeply. Thank you for your teachings, Master. Without you, I would never have stepped into the eternal being. Lu Yin smiled faintly. This is your own opportunity. Chu Songyun was extremely grateful to Lu Yin. If it weren't for Lu Yin, he would still be in the Red Coat universe under the stars, resisting the path of ruthlessness. Without Lu Yin, where would he get that sword? Without Lu Yin, he would have died just now. Lu Yin was not only his master but also his benefactor. Immediately after, everyone looked at the red umbrella. It was a treasure, Hong Shuang's weapon. It did not leave because of Chu Songyun's breakthrough. It was still floating in the sky. Chu Songyun. Your disciple is here. Take the treasure. Chu Songyun looked at the red umbrella and walked towards it step by step. Everyone had their own opportunities. Of the 2 treasures, one belonged to Mr. Mu and the other belonged to Chu Songyun. Neither of them belonged to Lu Yin. Lu Yin would not force himself to take the opportunity. Moreover, he could not use so many treasures anyway. The human civilization once had the 9 bases. It was not impossible for the 9 bases to appear again. Since he had decided to take another path, he was not afraid to think too much. Come, no matter how many civilizations are hostile to you. Chapter 44-57. Lu Yin took the note. This was the second time. A creature used the River of Time to send a message. Last time it was to tell him where Miao Zun's test was. This time it was. Lu Yin looked at the note and narrowed his eyes. The Master of Balance prevents the unknowable from forcing an expedition. It was a simple sentence, but it caused Lu Yin's heart to sink. The Balance Envoy was indeed about to make a move. The appearance of the bestowment god was a warning. Now that the unknowns were prevented from starting a forced expedition, it meant that after the 2,000-year protection period of the unknowns ended, there would no longer be a protection period for the unknowns. At that time, other than the unknowns being unable to act against each other, they would be able to act against the unknowns. The Master of Balance was already making arrangements. But why? Just because of Chu Songyun? Another ultimate artifact turbid treasure? Or was there some other reason? He didn't know what was waiting for the 3 universes, so he had to make a response. Either it was so strong that the balance could not be used against it, or it would continue to be protected by the unknown. The main thing was that he didn't know what other means the Master of Balance had to deal with them other than the divine realm. Could it be that he was going to attack them personally? Perhaps not knowing how to protect them would be the simplest solution. In that case, I would have to start a forced expedition. Alright, there was one more thing. Lu Yin lay down in the hanging coffin and said, 8 colors come out. What is it? The Balance Envoy broke the rules. Are you going to do something about it? Do you have any evidence? Lu Yin angrily rebuked. You didn't even ask for evidence when Air Mao broke the rules. Why is the Balance Envoy so special? Yellow broke the rules and injured Orange. That's the truth. Since you said that the Balance Envoy broke the rules, who was injured? 8 Colors was very calm. Indeed, Chu Songyun had not been injured and had even forced out the treasured turbid artifact because of this. Lu Yin's main goal was to gain the upper hand and pave the way for his next words. It seems that the so-called rules of the unknown vary from person to person. Air Mao is weak, so it serves him right to be unlucky. Balance is strong, so it doesn't matter if he breaks the rules. Lu Yin's voice was so loud that it could be heard everywhere. The 8 colors tone was still as calm as ever. If there is evidence, the unknown will naturally uphold the rules. Little fellow, did you suffer? Why don't you tell me about it? The old man teased. Yuche's voice rang out. Luin, don't be rash. Everything requires evidence. I believe that there is a misunderstanding. Luin interrupted Yuche. Rules are like a line. Some people are above and some are below. I understand, but I'm just giving everyone a reminder. Don't break the rules. First, be clear about whether you're online or offline. After that, he turned to 8 color and said, I want to ask, can the mission reward be an unknown protection period? Base said, sure. How long can a 6 stars mission reward be exchanged for? We need to communicate. Communicate? Who are you communicating with? The protection of the unknown is related to all unknowns, which is why we need to communicate with all unknowns. Then what if I appoint an unknown protector? There's no such reward exchange here, only an unknown period of protection. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. The duration of the unknown protection was obviously a loss. If he had used the 6 stars mission reward alone to exchange for an unknown protection, then the duration would definitely be even longer. This was a deal. It was just like how he had traded with Demao for a 5-star mission reward. So here's the problem. Yes, he wanted to choose the unknown protector of the 3 universes the most. White? Without hesitation he chose white. It was too powerful. It faced Xianling Shangjing directly, chased after Air Mao like a ghost, and opened its doors all over the river of time. Its strength was unfathomable. With its protection, even the balance envoy would not be afraid, but how could he make white trade? 8 color, I want to talk to white alone. Please confirm that white is here. Luin had a headache and shouted, White, are you here? Can we talk? No one answered. What? Haha little guy, there's no need to shout. White won't talk to you. It's very special. How special? Haha. Luin frowned. Yuche, are you here? I'm here. Luin, how can I help you? Yuche was very polite. Luin said directly, I want to talk to White alone. Help me make an appointment. Yuche was helpless. Sorry, I can't contact White. Then who can help me contact White? I can help you. The black unknown spoke. No one else could hear them talking to Luin alone. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. Condition. You know. The price is too high. I don't know why you want to contact White. There are many things that White can do and so can I. The black unknown did not know. Luin took a deep breath. White and black were opposite colors. White was so powerful, so black should not be too far behind. If it really did not work, he could make a deal with the black unknown. Of course, it had to be when the 3 universes were in danger. If the black unknown was not enough, there was still the old guy. One could trade with the star map, and the other could trade with the tributary of the river of time. This way it would save him some trouble. He placed the 6 stars mission reward. Black and the old guy should be enough. Thinking of this, his voice became gentler. Okay, I'll make a deal with you when I need it. That would be for the best, the black unknown replied. The old guy's voice rang out. Little guy, why aren't you talking? Did someone agree to help you contact White? Let me remind you, don't believe it. Not many can contact White. Ah. Luin rolled his eyes. I know what you want. I'll use that to trade with you. Are you willing? Yes. So direct? Why hide it? Luin said, okay, we'll make a deal one day. Ah. Luin left knowledge. Making a deal with these unknowns was the last step. As long as it was possible, he would not let any of them increase their strength. However, there was someone from the unknowns who was helping him. Passing a note through the river of time seemed to be the old guy's method, but it was too obvious and untrustworthy. Who was it? Was there another reason for helping him? The unknowns who had been watching Ancestor Shan were also not found. Luin rubbed his head. There were not many unknowns left, so why was it so complicated? Now he was afraid that the 8 colors would suddenly find a new member to join them. That would be troublesome. Not long after, Luin tried to get the crow's twist. Although it was better than before, after all, he had discovered some civilizations and absorbed the green light in the past few hundred years when he was drawing the star map. He continued to explore the civilizations, lighting up the stars of the starry fist and building the wall of his heart. A huge void rift split the starry sky into 2, swallowing countless skeletal creatures and various lights. This was because there were battlefields everywhere, and countless skeletons were scattered everywhere. Violent music came from afar, and it was getting closer and closer. What followed was a majestic aura of life that looked like a white monster. Delight City was on the verge of collapse. Skeletal creatures rushed out one after another, and there were even more lights in the surroundings. This was the battlefield between Delight City and the Divine Realm. Just as Lu Yin had expected, they had started fighting. There was no communication and there was no need for it. There were rules between fishing civilizations, but this rule seemed to have been broken the moment one side made a move. Within Delight City, beside a river, a skeletal creature looked up. A corner of the castle had been broken, and there were countless shattered bones on the ground. There were bones of other colors among them, and there was no end to them. There were even bones floating above the river. The battle had finally begun. The skeletal creature looked around and it was Lu Yin. He had rolled his die and entered the Delight City skeletal creature's body, wanting to see what was going on. The moment he arrived he saw a battle, and it was an exceptionally bitter one. Delight City did not have any control over the life and death of the Divine Realm civilization. This was because the creatures of the Divine Realm did not have bones, and they were only made up of specks of light. This was also the reason why Legujin had started the battle. A fishing civilization that was not threatened by the death universe naturally had to be destroyed. This was also one of the scenarios that Lu Yin had anticipated. He had also anticipated that Legujin would not start the battle. After all, the Bone Tribe had no advantage against a Divine Realm civilization. It could only be said that he had underestimated the death universe. They could tolerate the existence of fishing civilizations, but they could not tolerate a fishing civilization that was not threatened by the Bone Tribe. Lu Yin recalled that Boss Zhou had already charged out from the skeletal creature's memories. He saw another eternal realm outside the castle charging out as well. This was a huge creature made up of bones that was as complex as a mountain. It charged into outer space and shattered countless specks of light with a single palm. That was the moment when Legujin started the battle with the God King of the Divine Realm civilization. At that moment the sound of music reached its peak. The God King attacked Delight City and wanted to destroy it directly, but Legujin lured him away. No one knew where he went to fight. This battle did not last long, and Delight City was already being suppressed by the Divine Realm civilization. They did not have enough Eternal Realm experts, and Legujin obviously could not suppress the God King. As long as the battle continued, Delight City would be defeated sooner or later. The Death Universe was very powerful, and Kola City was only one of the 7 abysses of the Death Universe. It was not enough to fight against a fishing civilization alone. Lu Yin immediately exited the fusion and walked out of the 3 universes, teleporting towards the battlefield. He wanted to take the opportunity to weaken the Death Universe and the Divine Realm civilization. The Divine Realm civilization was definitely a civilization that the Envoy of Unknown Balance would use against the human civilization. The weaker they were, the less of a threat the human civilization would face. As for the Death Universe, it was needless to say. He would weaken them as much as possible. No matter who won this battle, they would have to pay a price. After teleporting many times, Lu Yin finally approached the battlefield. He stood 50 years away from Delight City and did not get any closer to avoid being detected by Legujin or the God King. First, he looked for the other Eternal Realm battlefields. Soon he saw Boss Zhou's battlefield. It was known as the strongest in Delight City, second only to Legujin. There was not only one opponent but 2 Eternal Realm experts, and they were definitely real Eternal Realm experts. In addition, there were at least 2 Eternal Realm experts in Delight City. One of them was one of the members of the band with Legujin. One was quite a powerful Eternal Realm expert, and the other was an Eternal Realm expert that Lu Yin had seen with his own eyes when he merged with the skeletal creature. Chapter 4458. Back when he had merged with the skeletal creature's memories, he knew that there was another Eternal Realm outside the castle, but he did not see any battle. Could it be that he had stayed in Joy City? Lu Yin followed the location and stared at the Eternal Realm outside the castle that looked like a mountain of bones. This Eternal Realm's opponents were also 2 Eternal Realms from the Divine Realm civilization, but they were fake Eternal Realms. Their battlefield was the furthest away from Legujin, so it was not easy to detect them. He teleported and disappeared. Far away, the mountain of bones kept slapping in all directions. The void was constantly distorted, forming strange shapes. They were the invisible worlds. On the left and right, 2 rays of light kept shooting out light spots to form a killing force. Similarly, an invisible world spread out and resisted the mountain of bones. Suddenly, a black light flashed from one ray of light to the other. It pierced through the mountain of bones along the way. It flickered for a moment, and the 2 rays of light quickly dimmed. The next moment, the black light descended in front of the mountain of bones. The mountain of bones had just been pierced through, and before it could react, it was grabbed by a huge force and disappeared without any resistance. 3 eternal realms were fighting in the same place, but 2 died and 1 disappeared in the blink of an eye. No one noticed because the commotion was too small. Far away, after 2 teleportations, the mountain of bones was released. It looked ahead in shock and saw a creature that was surging with deathly still energy. It was this creature that had grabbed it in an instant. It was an absolute powerhouse. Lu Yin looked at the mountain of bones and suddenly struck out with his palm. The mountain of bones wanted to retaliate, but its bones shattered inch by inch and were penetrated by Lu Yin once again. Inside its body, Lu Yin grabbed a huge bone. Then the deathly still energy flowed through Lu Yin's body. His arm flowed into the deathly still planet in the starry sky where his heart was. The deathly still planet rotated and continuously absorbed the deathly still energy in the mountain of bones. This deathly still energy came from Legujin. Legujin had used the deathly still bone language to give this mountain of bones life. Now this deathly still energy had entered the deathly still planet. The mountain of bones finally spoke. There was a bang and it shattered. Lu Yin waved casually, and the bone fragments turned into ashes. He did not even throw them into the hell of the appointment platform because this mountain of bones had been given life by the bone language. Who knew if Legujin could detect it? He was taking a risk. He teleported and disappeared, then continuously teleported and changed directions. Finally, it stopped far away in another direction of the battlefield. 2 pseudo-immortal level experts from the Divine World civilization were instantly killed by his deathly silence power. Only the deathly silence power would not attract the attention of Legu Kujin and the deity king. This was because the deathly silence power was everywhere on the battlefield. As long as he controlled it well, it would not be conspicuous. Absorbing the deathly silent energy within the White Bone Mountain would allow the deathly silent planet to double in size. Lu Yin looked at his hands and then looked up with a serene gaze. It was just as he had guessed. He could absorb, devour, and strengthen the power of the deathly stillness. It was just like absorbing the power of death in a universe that had been rebooted by a dead universe. These dead universe creatures were all resources that could strengthen his deathly still power. This power was truly interesting. Lu Cheng had lost an Eternal Life Realm expert, and the Divine World civilization had lost 2 pseudo-Eternal Life Realm experts. Because it happened too quickly, no one had noticed it yet. He still had a chance to do something. Kill a few more Eternal Life Realm experts? No, if he made another move, it would be easy for him to notice. Unless, instead of attacking the Eternal Realm experts in the dead universe, he killed the pseudo-Eternal Realm experts in the Deity World civilization. Right. He suddenly thought of something and looked into the distance, in the direction of the Deity World civilization. With itself as the center, the Deity World civilization spread out in all directions, conquering one civilization after another, making those civilizations live according to the laws of their Eternal Life Realm experts, except in the direction of the 3 universes. This meant that there were many universal civilizations under the Deity World civilization, which also meant that there were many mother trees. But Lu Yin was not thinking about the mother trees of those civilizations, but the mother tree of the Deity World civilization. The Deity World civilization also had a mother tree, and it was much bigger than the mother trees of ordinary universal civilizations. Although it was far from being comparable to the unknown divine tree and the xianxia tree, it was still very big. If he could absorb the green light of the mother tree, he should be able to obtain the crow's twist. Thinking of this, Lu Yin's eyes burned with passion and he teleported away. That God King was fighting with Lika Kujin. Then, even if the Deity World civilization still had powerhouses guarding it, they might not be able to stop him. Lu Yin teleported again and soon saw the Deity World civilization in the distance. If Lu Cheng and the Deity World civilization had not started a war, he would not be so close. After all, this Deity World civilization was also a fishing civilization. But now, things were different. From the information he had obtained from the unknown, the God King was the only one who could threaten his life. There was indeed a God Empress who was also compatible with 2 universal laws, but she had only broken through recently and was not enough to threaten his life. Then, the one guarding the Deity World civilization should be that God Empress. There was no need to fight head-on. Although this God Empress had only recently broken through and was compatible with 2 universal laws, who knew what her laws were? Some of the laws were confusing and difficult to deal with. Since that was the case, he would just lure her away. Lu Yin thought for a moment and then took out the red hanging coffin. He drew a door on the coffin lid and struck out with a palm, pushing the door far away. At the same time, he waved his hand, and his strength cut through the sky, splitting the dark void into two and causing a huge commotion. This commotion attracted the attention of the creatures of the deity world civilization and the skeleton creatures. Because they were very close to the deity world civilization, it naturally attracted the attention of all the creatures within the deity world civilization as well. The ray of light entrenched itself on the mother tree and looked into the distance. It was shocked. Unknown. It hurriedly rushed out, and specks of light turned into shooting stars that shot into the distance. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Lu Yin teleported into the deity world civilization and arrived on top of the mother tree. He took a deep breath and the deathly still planet spun wildly. He raised his hand, grabbed the Golian and slashed it. The power of the deathly still followed the Golian's blade and slashed at the mother tree, splitting it into two. The entire deity world civilization was shaken. Far away, the God Empress was warning the God King about the unknown. The moment the mother tree was cut in two, she suddenly turned around. Not good, she had been tricked. She hurriedly rushed towards the deity world civilization. Within the deity world civilization, a ray of light rushed out. It was a pseudo-immortal level creature that guarded the bottom of the mother tree and attacked Lu Yin. Lu Yin did not care about the pseudo-immortal level creature's attack at all, and he only stared at the God Empress in the distance. As the God Empress approached, Lu Yin suddenly disappeared and left. The pseudo-immortal level creature's attack missed, and not long after, the God Empress landed and looked at the mother tree that had been split in two. She was furious. She had seen the trajectory of the deathly still power when Lu Yin left. How could this creature escape so quickly? How did he do it? The deathly still power was too obvious and she wanted to kill her way out. However, she had to guard the civilization. She had already warned the God King that the unknown was even more dangerous than those skeletal creatures. Everything could be lost, but the God King could not be defeated. Lu Yin teleported away from the deity world civilization and waited for a few days. He saw that the battle between the God King and Legukujin was becoming more and more intense, and he even saw the world being destroyed. He knew that Legukujin was going all out and that the outcome would soon be decided. He teleported into the deity world civilization and retracted his aura. He pressed his hand on the severed mother tree and absorbed the green light. This was the best opportunity for him to absorb the green light. After teleporting in, the God Empress' attention was focused on the battle between Legukujin and the God King. She did not notice that Lu Yin was absorbing the green light since he did not need to use any power to do so. Back then, even Shangjing had not noticed that Lu Yin had absorbed the immortal plume tree's green light. Otherwise, Lu Yin would not have had the chance to absorb it at all. At most, he would have felt that the immortal plume tree was different. So far, only Lu Yin could see the green light, no one else could see it. Beneath the mother tree, Lu Yin felt the boundless green light enter his body. Indeed, there were many more than ordinary mother trees. This meant that he would definitely be able to obtain Crow's rotation. Lu Yin quickly finished absorbing the green light and immediately teleported away. He looked back at the battlefield and wanted to enter Delight City's castle again to search for more armor fragments, but he suddenly felt his heart palpitate. That God King was going all out, so Lu Yin had no choice but to leave. He then rolled his die and merged into Delight City's skeleton to observe the situation. When Lu Yin merged with the skeletal creature's body, he saw countless skeletons raining down on the city like raindrops. Delight City headed towards the direction it had come from. A deafening sound of music could be heard, and outside, a dazzling light could be seen. It was the God King. Memories flooded Lu Yin's mind. Legukujin had been defeated, and one of his sunglasses had been shattered. That bright green hat had also been lost, and he had been in a rather miserable state. After that, Delight City had retreated. The skeleton that Lu Yin had merged with was the first batch to return to Delight City. There were still many skeletons that had not made it back and they were all doomed. Not far away, Lu Yin saw that Boss Zhou's body had also been broken. This battle had not been easy. Delight City fled into the distance as quickly as possible. It seemed like they were fleeing in a sorry state, but Kugukujin did not seem dejected at all. Instead, he was singing excitedly. The band stood at the top of the castle and twisted their bodies towards the God King in a provocative manner. Beneath the stars, the God King did not chase after them. Many eternal realms and pseudo-immortal level realms appeared beside him, watching Delight City flee without giving chase. This battle had come out of nowhere, and the divine world had suffered great losses. Even the mother tree had been cut down. The unknown had also appeared in the dark. This was also the reason why the God King did not chase after them. Compared to Delight City, he was more apprehensive about the unknown. Furthermore, it had not been easy to defeat Legukujin, and he had gone all out to defeat him. If the divine world wanted to fight to the death with Delight City, the result would be Delight City's destruction, and the divine world would be on the verge of collapse. There would not be much left, and it would be even more impossible for them to resist the unknown. Your Excellency, chasing after them is disadvantageous to us. We have already suffered great losses. Xianxia perished together with the enemy, and Xioshan and Huaishan's whereabouts are unknown. We should not continue fighting, a god advised. He was afraid that the God King would not be able to bear the provocation and chase after them. The God King spoke in a low voice, "Flowing Knight, why did you appear?" Flowing Knight respectfully replied, "This subordinate does not know. The unknown is definitely here. This subordinate truly does not know. Don't you have a good relationship with the unknown? Ask them. I want to know why they have appeared at this time. What is the relationship between this civilization and the unknown? Also, you sent Fushin in that direction because of the unknown, right? What exactly are you trying to do?" Flowing Knight was shocked and his light dimmed. "This subordinate's heart is for the civilization no matter what I do. Please understand, God King." Chapter 44:59. Specks of light rushed out of the God King's body and circled around Flowing Knight's radiance, causing it to dim and flicker. At this point, the God Queen arrived. "God King, let's get to the bottom of this." The God King retracted the specks of light. Flowing Knight trembled. "Thank you, God King. Thank you, God Queen." The God Queen's tone was gentle, but there was a coldness that was hard to ignore. "It's best if you tell us everything you know. We've been tolerating your contact with the unknown, but that doesn't mean we can't kill you. We don't know how strong the unknown is, but we're still a fishing civilization. No civilization can ignore the God King's true strength." "Let's go," the God King barked and turned to leave, no longer paying attention to Lu Cheng. Around him the gods followed suit. The divine realm had suffered heavy losses in this battle. Countless civilizations had died and 3 gods had died. Even the mother tree had been cut down. It wasn't that the divine realm didn't want to kill Lu Cheng, but that they couldn't. Flowing Knight felt a lingering fear. It didn't know why the unknown had appeared. It hadn't taken the initiative to maintain contact with the unknown, so it could only wait. He wondered how the bestowment god was doing. It was time to make a choice. Lu Cheng was far away from the divine realm. Everything had been restored, and no matter how great the losses were, it would recover even faster. The roaring music was no different from before. However, 2 eternal realms had died, so it was impossible for them to not care. Lu Yin looked at the castle. What was Legudu thinking? The Death Universe had 7 abysses, and it wasn't a match for the divine realm on its own. Would it summon the other abysses? If it did, would it affect the human civilization? The Commissioner of Balance suppressed the unknown and started a forced expedition. The purpose of this war was to end the protection period of the unknown, but Lu Yin was thinking of a way to start a forced expedition to increase the protection period of the 3 universes. He had thought that 1,000 years was a long time, but now he knew that it was very short. There were 2 ways to deal with the Commissioner of Balance's plans for the 3 universes. One was to trade with the unknown in exchange for protection. The other was to start a forced expedition in exchange for the protection of the unknown. Compared to the former, he would rather start a forced expedition. With his methods, he had the confidence to face any civilization. Even if he did not obtain any rewards, it would not be a problem for him to survive. However, if other unknown civilizations obtained benefits, no one knew what would happen in the end. Forced expeditions weren't something that could be started at will. Putting aside the unknowns for the time being, if he wanted the unknowns to start a war, there were only 3 targets. One was a technological civilization, one was a divine civilization, and one was the undead universe. The technological civilization and the divine world civilization were a little inferior. They were not qualified to force a war with the unknown. Now it seemed that the only choice was the Death Universe. Joy City had been lingering in the vicinity all this time. Lu Yin had first lured it to the divine realm civilization, but now, it was very likely that Joy City would attract the other abysses. In any case, the Death Universe would eventually arrive, so Lu Yin might as well forcefully target the Death Universe. Of course, the divine realm civilization would not be able to escape either. The more powers that joined the Death Universe, the easier it would be for them to fish in troubled waters. Lu Yin was also afraid of overdoing things, but he had no other choice. The Death Universe would definitely come, and the divine realm civilization would definitely be an enemy. He did not know if he had to weaken this enemy's strength, but the current situation was like this. If he did nothing, then he would be completely swallowed up. Well then. These powers were playing a big game. If that was not enough, he looked in another direction where the immortal plume civilization was. However, this was his bottom line. After all, the immortal plume civilization's greatest enemy was the unknown and the human race. None of them would be able to escape. After withdrawing from the fusion, Lu Yin continuously teleported back and forth until he finally arrived in front of the ten-eyed crow. The tree from the Divine Realm civilization had provided him with many green motes of light, which should be enough this time. As he thought about it, he covered his entire body with green motes of light and raised a hand to touch the ten-eyed crow's eye. The celestial eye opened and his body was forcefully turned around. Lu Yin gritted his teeth, and his body cooperated with the green motes of light to forcefully withstand the force. His fingertips were icy cold, and a familiar feeling surged into the celestial eye. Suddenly the ten-eyed crow only had one eye left. It had fused with the celestial eye again. Lu Yin had originally guessed that the celestial eye would be fused with this eye as well, and his guess had come true. However, the celestial eye itself had not changed. It was just that when he looked in a certain direction with the celestial eye, intersecting black lines would suddenly appear in that direction. This was the crow's body lock, and in the next moment, the intersecting black lines would suddenly rotate, causing the dark path to become blurry. This was the crow's body lock. He didn't even need to look at his opponent to make them turn around. Furthermore, it was a forceful turn. Unless his opponent was terrifyingly strong, even if they were slightly stronger than Lu Yin, they still wouldn't be able to escape. Lu Yin was excited and immediately teleported in front of Ba Rong. Ba Rong stared at him blankly. "Hello." Lu Yin smiled at him, causing Ba Rong's heart to go cold. Then intertwining black lines appeared around him. What the hell? Lu Yin did not use crow immobilization. Instead, he spun the intertwining black lines and turned around, reversing their line of sight. It opened its mouth. Damn it. He turned around and looked at Lu Yin. Has the universe been reversed? Lu Yin laughed heartily. Ba Rong did not move and continued to stare blankly at him. Lu Yin frowned and continued. After a period of time he felt helpless. Crow's twist had a flaw. It could not be used twice on the same creature within a certain period of time. Crow immobilization did not have this restriction, but crow immobilization required one to look at each other. Indeed, there was no such thing as invincible talent in this world. The ten-eyed crow's talent was already considered to be the pinnacle of talent, and so it was. He didn't know if he should heave a sigh of relief or something else. This was to be expected. If there was no limit to its innate talent, the ten-eyed divine crow would be invincible. Even if there were a few more base masters, they might not be able to take it down, let alone 3 base masters. The universe seemed fair, but it was actually unfair. Some creatures were born very strong while others were born like ants. However, there was also fairness beneath the unfairness. If one was born very strong, it would be difficult to break through. If one was born very weak, it would have an extremely high upper limit. Some creatures had extremely strong innate talents, but they also had flaws. This was the balance. Lu Yin was not disappointed. At the very least, crow immobilization gave him a chance to take the initiative, and that was often enough. There were still about 700 years before the protection of the 3 universes ended, which was actually a very short period of time. Lu Yin had been waiting for the Divine Realm to start a war with Lucidi, but now that the war had ended, the next step was to see if he could act according to his wishes and force a war on the unknowns. He first confirmed Lucidi's position. He had previously seen Lucidi and had guessed its speed and position. If Lucidi changed directions midway, then the location was wrong and he needed to confirm it again. Lu Yin continuously teleported until he was close to Lucidi and rolled his die. Not long after, he fused with a skeleton in Lucidi. Memories flooded in and the direction did not change. Just as he was about to retreat, after fusing with the die, Lu Yin suddenly stared blankly at 2 figures in the distance. Why were they here? The 2 figures that appeared in front of Lu Yin were Slayer and Eternity. These 2 should have been sleeping in the parallel universe of the Ninafirmament's universe, but they had actually appeared outside Lucidi's castle. He stared blankly at Slayer and Eternity as they walked towards the castle. Even though he was staring blankly at them, they were skeletons and did not have eyes. They could not tell that he was staring at them and they even walked past him. We can't enter. If we want to see this Lord Abyss, we have to rely on music to enter the castle. This was Slayer's voice. He had already tried to enter the castle and had even kept his promise to bring Eternity along, but he could not enter at all. Eternity calmly replied, "There's no rush. We'll see him eventually." Slayer replied, I'm just afraid that we won't be able to find the direction of the Nina Firmament's universe if we're too far away. The city just went through a war. We'll never forget this location, Eternity replied. As they spoke, they walked further and further away. Lu Yin maintained his previous posture, trying his best not to be noticed. After they were far away, he immediately withdrew from the fusion and continued to roll his die in silence. Again and again he kept fusing with the skeleton in the city. His goal was to fuse with Slayer's body and confirm his suspicions all this time. However, it was not easy to accurately fuse with Slayer's body. After all, there were countless skeletons in the city, and Slayer was just one of them. He needed luck. In that case, he would have to use time to accumulate luck. One day, 2 years later, Lu Yin finally fused with Slayer's body. Memories flooded in and he saw it. It was him. It really was him. He was not surprised. It was obvious, but it should not have been so obvious. It was as if he had been telling everyone that he was there. But he could not believe it. Scenes of the past appeared in his mind. It was too early, so early that even if the characteristics were so obvious, he still could not believe that it was him. His previous guess had only been 80% correct, but now he had made up for the remaining 2. That was why Wang Miao Miao had willingly betrayed the humans and followed him. She was destined to stand with this person. Slayer and Eternity had been brought here when the city and the Divine Realm were at war. Their appearance meant that the Master of Balance had begun to attack the 3 universes and wanted to draw the Death universes over. The Unknown Ones were no longer forcing the 3 universes to lose their protection. Every step was pushing them into the abyss. Lu Yin withdrew from the fusion and teleported back to the 3 universes. The first thing he did was find xianxia. He asked her to go into seclusion with him. Go into seclusion together? Xianxia looked at him strangely. Really? Just seclusion? Lu Yin's expression was solemn. It's fine as long as you sit with me. Although I don't know if your luck will be able to help me, I have no other choice. Xianxia understood the seriousness of the situation and nodded. If you need it, I'm available. Thank you. Lu Yin brought Xianxia to the seclusion grounds in the Tianyuan universe. He greeted Long Shi and had her sit beside him. He then took out Qianshu. How many luck characters do you have? Qianshu replied, still 3. The 4th one is difficult to write. Give it to me. Qianshu returned to Mount Supreme and Lu Yin placed the 3 luck characters on 3 sides of him. Let's take a gamble. Although he did not speak to the Master of Balance, he knew the Master of Balance's methods too well. He stopped the Unknown Ones from forcing the war and threw Slayer and Eternity into Lu City. Civilization. Then what's the next step? Lu Yin could not imagine what they would face after the protection period was up. Since he could not think of anything, he would go all out. You're tuning in to the Sword Dance in the Vast Sky YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.